Interesting.
Hmm.
Went to the Valley County Commissioners, so I'm wondering,
So,
hopefully your email. Yeah, you. Ed.
Okay, welcome everybody. Today is May 16th. This is our weekly county commissioner meeting. At this time, I would please ask everyone to rise, say the pledge. Ed, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Ed, for leading us. We have one addition to the agenda today, and I'm assuming we'll put it under commissioner discussion, and that's to add the Donnelly Fire Support Letter.
where do we put that, Mr. Chairman?
Let's put it down at the end of commissioner discussion.
Okay.
So I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make,
Move.
oh,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'll make a motion, we approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
We'll need to add it to that out there.
Yeah. You want to do it? Thanks. And that was for radios, wasn't it, Doug?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, for radios. Uh, Okay, we're gonna move on into our agenda. These are all action items. The first one is the meeting minutes of May 9th. Everybody get a chance to look at those?
Yes, sir.
I would
Entertain a
move to-
motion to approve.
I'd move to approve the meeting minutes of May 9th.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next one on the agenda item is also an action item. This is a proclamation for the Hope Week, which means healthy outcomes for positive experiences. Everybody get a chance to read that proclamation.
Yes, sir.
If you're all good with it, I'd entertain a motion to approve that.
We don't want Shannon to give us any input.
Shannon here?
Yes?
Oh, good.
Oh.
Yay, great.
Yeah,
Didn't
please.
know you were involved with that group. Thank you.
Yes,
Do you
she
guys have
is.
any questions about it?
She's the brains behind the whole thing.
Yeah, just for a little education, I would appreciate a little bit of a review of what it's all about. Yeah.
So I'm partnering with St. Luke's. Tiffany Dobbs is their community health person for St. Luke's. And we're partnering with another group called the Idaho Resilience Project. And so we're starting our own Valley County Resilience Project. And Hope Week is an attempt to try to mediate ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. And Idaho is actually fifth in the nation for the amount of adverse childhood experiences that a child has. There's up to 10, although they are trying to change that, I believe. So Hope Week is an attempt to add more positive experiences into kids' lives. Cascade this week is we got these bracelets for all the kids, and the bracelets say "You matter," apostrophe "You are loved," and just an attempt to make sure that all the kids know that there is someone out there that loves them. We're doing a My Trusted Adult tree for all the kids, and that's just so the kids know that there's people unrelated to them that care about them, that they can always turn to for help in the school system and outside of the school system. Cascade School is also you'll see a bunch of chalk designs all over the town. And then on Friday, they'll be doing a High Five Friday where they high five each other. The Payette Lakes Middle School in McCall is also participating in this, as is the Donnelly Public Library and the McCall After School Program.
Oh, great.
And then, so Hope Week is part of Mental Health Awareness Month. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And St. Luke's has a lot of online programs that we are offering this month to just make adults aware of all the options they have out there and where to look for help. And that's through St. Luke's, but I mostly deal with the youth side of it. So that's
Okay.
where Hope Week comes in.
Okay, you're not a St. Luke's employee, then you're?
I am not, but there is a St. Luke's employee on my board, Tiffany,
Okay.
and so when she started doing this, she was like, hey, would you help me with this? And then we found Hope Week, which it was along my lines of work that I do.
Uh-huh.
Shannon is the executive director for the Youth Advocacy Coalition for Valley County.
Oh,
So they deal a lot with youth programming. They actually support in amazing ways. I just went to a training and I was very impressed with what we have in our community as far as supporting children at risk and mental health awareness.
well, I really appreciate what you do, and thank you. And so thanks for the review.
So the proclamation has a bunch of whereas. The last one is probably the most important. And it states, whereas the Hope Week is a national effort supported by families, scientists, nonprofits, research centers, and institutes, universities, and government agencies to raise awareness about the significance of positive childhood experiences in child, youth, and family services and supports, research, and policymaking. Therefore, we, the following commissioners of Valley County, do hereby proclaim May 16th through the 20th of 2022 as Hope Week.
All right, great.
So we need a motion to accept.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
And I second with pride to do that. So,
Been moved and seconded to declare this next week as Hope Week. All in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye, motion carries, and we all sign this.
It'll be a fun week for kids this week.
Yeah, it's really great.
Okay, we're gonna move on down our agenda. And our next action item is approve and sign an emergency claim form. This is for JJT Remodeling, which is the company that won the bid to remodel the YCAP facility. Scott, anything you want to add?
This is a siding contract.
Siding outside?
Yeah. And stuff. So do you have a copy of it up there?
I do, on my computer.
Okay, and I have one here too for
To
signing.
sign?
Yeah, because we're going to, he's gonna come up today after lunch and pick it up. And, he's also our window contractor. I talked with him. They were ordered through Pat's Glass. He's supposed to get me an update, but I gave him he's gonna contact, Jaime and, you know, so they can work together on, if the windows aren't in. He said just slide right up to the windows, the existing ones, and then they'll take care of it from there.
Okay,
So this
So-
says service retainer.
What's that?
This says service retainer.
Yeah,
Is this
mhm.
just a portion?
Yes.
So this is just to get them started.
Yes, that was, it was written into the contract, and that's how they kind of worded it in the contract,
Okay.
is what Oki did and stuff, so.
Doug, this is saying it's coming out of ARPA. Are we doing ARPA instead of PILT?
I did not fill out that.
I did, my understanding was when we had our discussion, it was coming out of ARPA. Has that changed, or?
I would
I
I
thought
would
we,
say it comes out of PILT.
What?
propose that we take it out of pill.
Pill.
Okay,
I
that's
think we were
fine.
gonna take it out of pill.
Okay.
So I would entertain a motion into, approve this claim form for $15,000 to JJT Remodeling to be funded out of PILT.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Do you have a form, Scott, you said?
Yeah. And I need to cross out the ARPA, that's a, for the
Oh, yeah,
discussion
I'll
we
do it.
had, that's what we,
I can't remember all that.
I think if we use PILT for our buildings, because ARPA hasn't been determined yet for certain what we're using it for. So if we all think of it that way, maybe that'll keep it clear until.
Okay.
Just didn't get to play pickleball.
Hello.
A beautiful morning.
I know,
And you're stuck inside, along with the rest of us.
We got time. We'll have time. Always time.
Doug, did you print out the ballot for Central District Health?
PILT, is that the money the funding that's coming from is PILT?
Yeah.
Print it, Doug?
I thought when we had discussion, I missed.
If you can print it up here, that'd be great.
I don't have it. Gabby took my letterhead because Dave's name was still
You
on
know,
mine.
any budget.
I
And
don't
the
have
budget
letters.
lines for the building, yeah.
She was gonna actually bring me some letterhead and some second.
Great,
You
Page.
buy everything
Yeah.
because they're out.
yeah.
We understand probably the 1st of October.
Okay, great, yeah. Just, it's hard for me sometimes to pick up on all this.
Yeah, I thought they
Sure is
sent the
talking
ballot
another
with it
direction.
when we got the letter. Now it's gone. Sherry, do you have that ballot there? I thought they sent it. Now I can't find it.
I didn't put it.
So, did we miss something here?
Came from, hold on one second. I think it came from the Central District Health Secretary. What's her name? Do you
Anna
remember?
Mahan,
But I don't think, I
Oh,
found it.
yeah,
you found it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll print it off. It doesn't need.
I think you may have been talking about the same thing, ratify.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on down.
There's a ballot we're supposed to check for that.
I have to get that.
Next agenda item is to ratify Jane Young's appointment to the Central District Board of Health. Dr. Young is the representative from Ada County, and those commissioners have reapproved her, and the way the process works is the other 3 counties are allowed to vote on that nomination. So we'll circulate a ballot here. Jane's been on there as long as I have, probably longer. And she is a phenomenal person. She works with a lot of clinics and low-income folks to get health care down in the Boise Valley. It's been a great asset. So I'd entertain a motion to approve her appointment to Central District Health.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'll second it. Been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye, motion carries.
So, the petition though, we all have to individually
Sign
vote
it.
on that.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah, you have a
As soon as
check,
we get the ballot printed out, then we'll
the
sign it.
check box, so, yeah,
And then they get to vote on ours. I mean, the other counties voted on me when I was
right.
nominated for it too as well. And it's the way the 4 counties work, it's a district and we all kind of agree on it. I do know there's been some discussion this last week about possibility of, from commissioners in Ada County, that they might replace Dr. Cole. It's
Mhm.
under some investigation right now and they're looking at changing
Yeah, I
that.
read that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we'll see. That's their call. And then we'll get to vote on him as well if he gets reappointed. So we'll
Okay.
see.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on down. This was the addition to our agenda this morning. This is Donnelly Fire Support Letter. And this was for radios.
it is, and just so you guys know, we are looking at new radios for our road department, and the long-term vision from the capital improvement group is that Valley County would have one coordinated radio system so that everyone would be able to commute on the same channels. It would definitely improve our ability to do that. So we are asking Donnelly Fire what type of radios and to see if the road department can also use the same type of radio.
Just tune into frequency.
Yes. So we're trying to figure out how we make sure that we're all pointed in the same direction. And at the end of the day, our goal is to have one radio system for Valley County. Sheriff's
So-
Department's working on this too.
So you're saying one system that everybody in Valley County monitors, including all the EMS
Yeah.
and the fire?
Yep. And even the road departments, because there's a lot of times where a sheriff needs the road department to go do something immediately. And we're not on
Yeah.
the same systems.
Wouldn't you typically just be able to frequent some of them? I mean, that's what we typically did in the Forest Service. We'd have several frequencies, but we would be able to share frequencies.
So right now, that is not available.
You cannot share frequencies.
That's correct. Two different types of systems.
Okay,
So
two
that is the long-term goal,
Yeah.
is that we are all trying to use the same system so that there can be a coordination
Right.
in our communication efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I know radio is available with multiple frequencies that way, so, yeah.
So I have no problem, supporting their request. And I've got different individuals reaching out to them to see if we can all coordinate on the type of radios
So-
they're buying.
What does that mean to us financially and?
Well-
Radios are extremely expensive.
In your packet, there's a Idaho EMS Save Grant application from Donnelly Rural, and all this we're doing is a support letter towards that grant. And to give you a little more history on the radios, ever since my SIPA days, we've been spending a lot of money about every 3 or 4 years on radios. The issue with a lot of them is they don't last very long. They get beat up pretty bad. But Ed, you're kind of right. They can tune in on a lot of the same frequencies. And they've been doing that for years, but like I said, it's a wear and tear issue on radios. They get dropped, they get banged around, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and I think they've been able to communicate with each other ever since the beginning. It's just maybe not as efficient as, we would like.
Mhm.
So the road departments right now are not on that same system.
So when?
We just bought
And there's
those
a
new
break.
radios, 3 years ago, Doug?
No, theirs is really old.
Not for the road department.
Not for the road?
No.
They have in their budget a $300,000
Maybe I'm thinking of the GPS
radio.
ones.
And the other thing is that there is a brand new EMS system coming out of Lewiston 911 integration
Yeah,
system.
it's a regional.
Yeah, so where it would be, if we went down on our 911, that Grangeville would take it, or Lewiston would take it, or somebody else would be able to coordinate. So that, I just want to let you guys know, there's a large conversation around these systems out there right now.
Yeah, so the system we're talking about, is it friendly to all the other agencies in the area?
We don't know.
You know,
So
like
we're in
Forest
some-
Service particularly, because that's a big one.
I don't
Don't know yet.
think so on that, Ed. More so maybe on the fire side.
Mm-hmm.
The fire side can talk to each other, but there's a lot of stuff Forest Service does that they don't need to involve.
Right, that's where you just have
agencies.
select frequencies, I need
And I
to
think the
talk-
last ones we bought for, like SIPA, they had 240 frequencies on them that
Mhm.
they could be tuned in and changed. They also have to talk to the helicopters and the retardant planes, and there's a lot of, that's kind of a whole different
Yeah,
system,
It
really.
gets pretty complex.
But when SIPA combined with Payette Forest on their dispatch, they all went to the same radios
Right, they have,
for SIPA and for the Forest Service, just to save money, and everybody's talking and able to talk, and it's working out great.
and it's just, typically it would be select. In other words, we have a need to talk to the EMS, or if they have a need to talk to our road crew, Yeah.
Okay, so I have the letter of support here. I need a motion to approve it.
I move to approve the Downley Fire Support Letter for new portable radios.
A second?
I second it, yeah.
Moved in second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Okay, our next agenda item is also an action item. This is to determine the procedure to fill vacancies on advisory committees appointment by Board of County Commissioners. And I'll give you a kind of a brief history in the past, how it's kind of worked, and it's not really a defined policy, but normally when we have a vacancy on waterways or snowmobile advisory or whatever these are, there's folks that are interested in doing it or serving on it. And that advisory committee kind of, I guess you might say, interviews them and determines if they want them on that, and then they recommend that appointment to us. In a case that's popped up recently, I think we have 4 people interested on the Waterways Advisory Committee. And I think that that would warrant us maybe stepping in and saying we need to interview these people. My other thought on that, and I'm not sure which way to go, is maybe we should just put all 4 of them on there. I mean, it's not a limited number on the advisory committees. Some of them are, but most of them aren't.
Right.
And we can have just more input, more help, more suggestions. It's totally whatever you two guys want to do.
Yeah, I was kind of one that maybe spearheaded that a little bit on that end of it with the Waterways Committee. And I'd been hearing rumbles over time that, we don't feel like we're being fairly represented in this area or this, that kind of thing. And then I looked at that and I go, well, why wouldn't we do that? I mean, we do that on some of the committees, and I think we ought to do it on all of them particularly. I mean, they are represented in this board. And I just don't feel like it's a responsibility of that committee to bring people in. It's a responsibility of us to provide people to the committee personally,
Well, it kind of works both ways there a little bit, Ed, because sometimes they have people that they know that
Well, I
might
understand.
be good to serve, but I've never been in a situation where we've had 4 want to
Right.
apply at one time. So this is
Yeah.
kind of a new thing.
It is, and I think that was stimulated by saying, let's just advertise and see if we got people out there that want to be involved. And I'm very sympathetic with the idea that maybe we should make that board a little bit more broader if we want to. It doesn't have to stay that way forever.
No.
And it doesn't have to be cast in concrete that's the numbers. But if you have people stepping up, and waterways are really important right now. It's a
Well,
major issue.
And I have been in situations where advisory boards have come to us and they want to remove someone
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because they
Right.
can't get any work done. It's a controversial issue, whatever. So
And again,
there's weekend appoint and unappoint folks
Right.
too as well.
right.
Your feeling is, and this is an action item, so we need a motion,
Well,
is,
let's talk
Yeah,
about why. So the Waterways Board has a very specific goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that goal has been muddied since my time on this board. And so it's, the only reason I could see for us to intercede in their process, because in the past, it's always been, they put people on their own committee. And then we have a conversation about, really, they haven't made a recommendation to the board since I've been here. To your knowledge, has there been any recommendation?
we haven't put anybody on waterways for quite a while.
Yeah, we've had
Remember
people-
Doug, the last one? Phew. I mean, it's been a few
But
years back.
what they are trying to do is grants and fund the sheriff's departments. And that's really all they do. And so I don't want to see us create political problems on a board where people think that it's for one purpose versus another purpose. I think we just need real clarity on what the goals of these advisory boards are. Like the Fair Board Advisory Board specifically for fair and rodeo. The grooming, the water or the whatever it is, the Winter Rec Committee is very specific to grooming for the winter program. Waterways has always been and was very controversial before I came on. I think there's a mixed message of what that board's accomplishments are or trying to accomplish. So that's the only thing that I will say is if you're getting a message that, people don't feel like they're being fairly represented how? Because their specific goal is spending those Coast Guard monies
Well,
with the sheriff's department.
right. And they're all users. They're all water users. And so maybe there is some confusion as to what those things what we're supposed to be doing here. But the fact is that we have an advisory committee to sort that out. Means that must be some flexibility in where they choose to spend those dollars. And so, to me, if I have people you're saying, I'd like to be part of that, and you're absolutely right, if maybe we do need to be more clear. And one of the things I asked them specifically in that last meeting was for their bylaws to explain just that.
Did they
And
have
so-
any?
I
No,
don't think
And
any of them
so-
have any.
So the Fair Board
Um,
does. We
at
actually.
least they couldn't produce them. They suggested it maybe Clerk Miller may have a set of bylaws someplace, but I haven't heard back on that one. Mr. Miller, do you have any thoughts on that?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can do some research to determine if in fact we do have any records of any bylaws for the Waterways Committee, but not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, thank you.
Larry, we don't have any for snowmobile advisory, do we? Bylaws?
Yeah, I think we do.
Maybe we could dig those up and kind of use those as a template for this.
Yeah.
I'll send them to you.
I think where the confusion is lying on the waterways is because we're doing the waterways study, those people feel like they have some kind of say on that. And that's not what the Waterways Committee,
Right.
Advisory
That's
Committee
kinda
was
what's-
formed for.
What spurred probably some of this early on, that they were actually allowed to do some of this waterways management earlier. And, and other people, anyway.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So,
And I think that's the
Yeah.
clarity we need around some kind of a process. What are we asking these people to give us? We're asking them to spend the Coast Guard funding in the most fiscal manner appropriate,
Mhm.
and to make sure that our sheriffs are funded for the water.
mhm.
So what else do we want this committee to do? And I think that that's a working session with that board to find out, what they think their purpose is, what we think their purpose is, before we create a situation where
Well-
we put people that have a
So this is a good opportunity to bring some more people into this, in my opinion.
absolutely, yeah. And I have no problem doing that.
I suggest that we probably should do that. And that would help with this resolution that you're asking for. It would add a few more thought processes to that probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the existing board that has spent their time and energy, we're going to put people in there that may have a different idea of what that board is supposed to accomplish.
Maybe, but that might be a good thing.
And
That'll
that's-
help us resolve what that particular job is, right?
Well, I don't think that board should tell us what they're going to accomplish. I think that comes from us.
Mm-hmm.
It is an advisory board. This is the advice we need from you. And that's where the clarity needs to come
Yeah.
from. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why it was put in place. I don't know how long it's been around. I just know
Oh,
when
man,
I was
it's-
on that. there was
It's
a lot-
been here longer than I've been a commissioner. I don't know, maybe
Wow.
Cinda might remember when they started that, but you're right as far as it was assist our sheriff's department in a boating program,
Right.
whether it's not decoys,
Buoys and
buoys,
education
replacements, they
programs.
break, they get lost, they drift off, those kind of things, and they help manage a lot of that stuff. As far as the waterway studies, I don't think we have anybody that influences on that study. We look at, they do the study and we look at it and make our own, kind of our own decisions on that. So they're not involved in that aspect of it. But, so do you know how many people are on waterways now?
I don't.
Four
I
people.
think there's 4 people.
There's 4 people right now, and they're looking at this as, say, kind of what they typically look at, 5 people,
Commissioners, not to throw a monkey wrench into this, but I think the broad spectrum should not just be the waterways, right?
Right.
Because the
Right.
commissioners appoint the snowmobile advisory, winter
Absolutely.
recreation, the fair board,
Mhm.
road advisory. So I think that the commissioners I don't know, need to identify the process for appointing members and then probably meeting with each committee to explain to them what the goals are, what the
Right.
expectations are.
revisit those charters.
Absolutely. So I'm glad that the commissioners are in fact having this conversation today, and it might not be determined today, but the commissioners have to be fully aware that it's broader than just the waterways committee.
Right.
And I
Absolutely.
agree with that.
Appreciate that.
And so I think the process needs to be the same across the board. But I also do believe that it's time to look at, the Fair Board is different. They do have bylaws, but they're quasi-government. They are their own entity in and of itself per state statute.
Well,
these other,
Anytime they're working for the Board of County Commissioners, that's where the rubber hits the road, in my opinion. And so as far as reviewing people for those positions, same as planning and zoning, it's the same thing. They get, someone applies for it, they review, I've been interviewed, and I think it's a great process. And so, and I think it adds to transparency. It's a very much needed area of transparency, in my opinion. So we say, okay, you have an opinion about this, come in and work with us.
And my feeling is when we interview people for whatever advisory board, to me, it legitimizes that board.
Yeah,
It makes them realize that we are concerned, we're watching, we want to be involved. And like I said earlier, we've been in a situation where we've actually had to ask people to leave
right,
certain advisory boards because nobody could get along with them.
right.
So if these 4 people want to come in and interview for it, I think that's appropriate. I'm sure we're going to get some feedback from not only the advisory members now, but some
Right.
other folks in the community saying yay or nay.
Right,
And we have to take that into consideration, but it's our call in the
it's your
end.
call. It's our
What
call.
I'm saying is sometimes it's really hard to keep these boards full or these advisory boards full. So
Yeah.
anybody who wants to serve on it in the past has usually gotten on it because
Yeah.
we need the volunteers.
You need it,
We
yeah.
need the help.
and I agree with that. I just want to make sure that they know what they are applying for.
You're sure,
Full transparency, and that should be, this is the reason that this board is in place, and this is what you're going to accomplish.
but they're going to be
So-
part of a review, most likely, of that, just like you're saying. In other words, if we were to accept those 4 people that come in here, eyes open, yes, we are going to review our
Interview,
charters.
yeah.
You know, we're
And
looking at these.
get it on the agenda. They come in and they sit down in front of us and we talk to them about it and what they think the goals are and our goals are. And
Yep,
that's how you kind of explain what the function of that advisory board is.
So what I'm hearing, just to reiterate, so when we have a position on any board, we are gonna post it in the newspaper.
that's what
We're
I'd
gonna
like to
give
see.
2 weeks' notice for people to apply for these positions. We will then interview those individuals based upon an amended charter or some type of revised charter, so that these people know what they're applying for. And
I
then
don't
we
know if
make
I've
the
ever seen a charter.
recommendation.
Well, if we have no charter right now, for instance, in the water committee, I suggest that we go ahead and fill the board and then start the process of reviewing a charter. And they
then
can
I
be
have a
part of it.
concern with that,
Yeah.
because what I'm hearing you say is that you have people that may want to make changes to that waterway committee.
I don't know if they do or not. But they're interested in what that committee does. And I believe it'd be appropriate to have them weigh in.
And I think it's our responsibility to say, wait a minute, you're getting off into something that's not your responsibility as an advisory board.
Mhm.
And how do we
That's-
know what that responsibility is right now?
Well, as you stated earlier, it's to assist the sheriff's department's boating program.
At this point,
You know, if we have someone from Warm Lake that wants to be an advisory committee, that'd be awesome because we've never had anyone.
yeah.
I think that's great. And so that, you know, to me is a plus to that person applying for it. I don't think we should fill the board, Ed, right now. I think we should interview those 4 people.
Right.
And then make our decision after that.
I do as well.
Just to appoint 4 people now?
No.
And we may appoint all 4 of them.
No, our review is important to
Yeah.
that, yes.
So without, in my opinion, without knowledge of what that board is trying to accomplish, it's really difficult for these people to say, I want to be on the waterways board. Because I just heard, again, you say, for now, that's the charter.
That's what we have.
Yeah. So how do they know? Are they applying for this board to make change? Are they applying for this board because they're really interested in spending Coast Guard funds toward these specific?
Well, we interview them, I guess that's some questions we could have, right?
Well, and do we want to meet with the board right now, having these 4 people come in and have a full conversation about what their purpose is? But also, I mean, going back to the other advisory boards, the road advisory board is there, the winter rec, Larry, it's not winter rec, is it? It's just snowmobile advisory board
Snowmobile, and
and waterways.
that's set up by legislation.
Okay. So so is the Fair Board that has statutes. So really the only ones right now that we are using in an advisory capacity is the Road Board and the Waterways Board.
Mhm.
So I know that there are some.
What's that?
Planning and zoning.
That's
Planning and
not an
zoning's
advisory board. That's a statute. That's
No,
that's,
it's an advisory board. You guys
Advisory
interview them
board.
and appoint them.
Yeah.
And we have bylaws that tell us how, when, and where we're gonna meet.
Yep.
And I think that's what Clerk Miller was talking about, was
I think all of them, yeah.
was each group. I mean, we need to set up bylaws and have consistency and transparency. I mean, what's your purpose?
right.
Mhm.
What are we going to accomplish? And then those are adopted. We put those bylaws in place, and then people are able to apply for these things with full knowledge of what their responsibility is. I think it takes away any conflict between board members. This is what we're supposed to be accomplishing.
Well, Sherry, on the road committee, we attempted to do that early on, and I think we have a rudimentary charter as it is, you know, but I guess maybe to complete that, we need this process of them actually applying to this board, working through that and being appointed as per that, as representatives of this body.
And we did do that, I guess, with the road
Yeah.
advisory, because there was a letter of interest.
Mhm.
So everybody provided a letter of interest, why they wanted to be on that board, and then we appointed the road advisory members.
But any additional people, anybody coming into that, should not necessarily be picked exclusively by the standing board.
Okay.
That is an issue, because then, and they mentioned that in the meeting when I was there, said, well, we want somebody we can work with. Well, you know, you're
Well, see,
working with the public.
That's never been an
You know?
issue in the past because we just didn't have,
Yeah,
or anybody want to do it. It was a matter of finding people to keep the advisory boards full. And so when someone came along and they seemed reasonable, we would put them on it because we needed volunteers. We needed the body count, so to speak. So I think in this case, we've kind of decided how we're going to do this from here on. It's going to be an interview process. And as far as, you know, a mission statement and the bylaws for these advisory committees, I think each one of you should go to one of them and sit down and talk to them about them
Yeah, let's get this
and get
cleared
their
up.
feeling on it.
yeah.
It's, like I say, it's all advisory. Cindy, do you want to add something?
I just wanted to say, you know, in the past for planning and zoning, we've filled positions differently, you know, depending upon what year it was. I mean, there's never been complete consistency in how we do it for planning and zoning. Typically, for the Valley County Planning and Zoning Commission, you interview and appoint them. I know the McCall Impact Area, they pick somebody, give you a name, and you don't interview or anything else.
We
What else?
interviewed the impact. Tony
Did you?
Moss was just, yeah, he was just in and he was put on there for.
But in the past,
the
you
impact area.
hadn't. So
In the
there's no
past, we hadn't.
consistency is kind of my point in how
Yeah.
these are done. So I like Clerk Miller's idea of making sure everybody's doing the same
You all
thing.
kind of get on the same page
Right.
for these things, yeah.
That's
So,
what he was doing.
Because we're past time, do we need you want to see a work session on this to identify exactly what the process is, or?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to put it on our agenda for an interview. And at this point, we have a committee. We can add people or not add people at this point. And if we decide we've advertised it as if we are going to add people on it, and I think we should complete that. And I think that timely would be to get on the next
So
meeting.
maybe what we should do in the meantime is
Yeah.
table this and come up with a specific guidelines on how we're going to put people on these board. And it's going to be advertised for 2 weeks and
Right.
on and
that's-
on and on. And then what I would like to do is when we decide we're going to interview for any of those committees, that the chairman of that committee come in on that interview with us.
Uh-huh, yeah.
They don't have a say, they don't have a vote, but just they're
That's
here.
fine. Yeah.
And if there's any issues, then we're going to
At
learn
least
about
they're
it then.
part of the process, they're there.
So
Yeah.
let's table this today and actually build a procedure, a list. Here's the steps to get on different advisory boards.
Okay.
and go that direction. It's, like I say, it's never been a problem in the past because we didn't have that much interest. And all of a sudden, next it'll be campaign signs.
But I don't want to keep these 4 people that applied to this hanging forever.
No,
on this.
no.
So I think we
understand
need
that.
to set a date that we're going to make interviews.
Okay, so then we're gonna table this and all of us will work on this and we'll try and get it back on the agenda next week.
Commissioners, do you want me then to try to schedule interviews for the Waterway Committee, interested individuals for next week?
How much time do we have on the agenda, Doug? That's gonna be the issues.
I'm gonna have to squeeze it in probably 4 o'clock.
I would,
You guys wanna do that?
I would prefer that, yes.
Is that okay with you, Sherry? Or do you wanna do this first, the procedure?
Well, the procedure's not as important to me as having a defined mission.
Okay,
That's been the problem with the waterways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it would behoove us all to have a defined mission for these individuals that are applying for this board.
Procedure for any one of these could be in a bylaws, and that just needs to be created.
and usually most bylaws talk about chairman, vice chairman, if somebody
Right.
leaves, who's the next in line, and
This is the way we do
those
it.
kind of things. Right now, I have the mission statement and application process and the interview process.
Mhm. And I would like a motion that we interview the candidates at the next available opportunity. And hopefully that'd be next week, but if not, following week.
Okay, I'll second that motion. So as soon as Doug can get it on the agenda and some time slot, 15 minutes each or something, we'll interview those 4 and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we're gonna move on down to the fun one of the day. This next item is an action item. This is Valley County Pickleball Club Lake Fork
My
Court
God, you bring your tools?
project.
Good morning, I'm Evelyn.
Evelyn,
Banfield.
come on up. Please come to the mic so the public can hear you.
We had a short PowerPoint presentation we wanted to go over to just kind of give you the status of our project and also talk about an opportunity with Land and Water Conservation Funds. And Gabby was supposed to set that up for me. Would it be here? Do we know?
No, just give me 1 second. I'll get it up.
I think Doug's got it on the
Oh,
computer
great.
there, so.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, there's somewhere in here that we got all that information.
I also did email the presentation to each of you just this morning in case we weren't going to be able to get it up. I want to introduce Hope Ayers, who's Vice President of Valley County Pickleball Club.
Nope.
So Hope, that makes you the VCPC VP. And Pauline Frank, who handles all of our construction and knowledge with the courts committee. We have a committee of 8 very dedicated member volunteers from Valley County Pickleball Club that have come together for, a year and a half now. We've been working on this project. And there are a lot of supporters in this room for Valley County Pickleball Club, Larry and Jeff and Cinda, who's stepped out. But we really appreciate this support and definitely appreciate the support that was provided by the commissioners in dedicating land to us to develop a pickleball facility. So, Doug, do you have that? So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to provide new recreation opportunity for residents and visitors of Valley County through the sport of pickleball. Great. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So we're just going to overview our mission, our project and funding status, and primarily we want to talk about what are the requirements for the county if Valley County would be able to go after these land and water conservation funds. So go ahead, Doug, or Clerk Miller, should I be saying Clerk Miller?
You can call him whatever he wants. He's
Okay.
a pretty mellow guy.
Douglas.
All righty, so next slide. So you guys are probably all aware, we've been in here several times talking about why pickleball, why is it so great? It's just so heart healthy. It's a health initiative. It is open to everyone in the community. It's easy to learn. It is inexpensive. All you got to have is a paddle and a ball. It's very social. It helps with relieve anxiety, stress. People meet new people through pickleball. And also the sport is open to everyone. Anyone can play pickleball. It's a family friendly. You see all kinds of ages and demographics playing pickleball. Next, Doug. Pickleball's had a huge growth. You've probably seen it. You just, as the years go by, you hear more and more and more about pickleball. And 39.3% growth. It's the largest the fastest growing sport in the world and in the United States for the past 2 years. Next slide, Doug. So with that growth comes the demand for places to play. And did you know that in all of Valley County, there's only one dedicated outdoor pickleball court that is open and free to the public? Where is it?
Skate.
Right here in Cascade. That little cement court that's right next to the Legion Hall is the only open, free pickleball court in all of Valley County. So we aim to fix that. And in 2020, we formed this committee to fundraise, construct, and operate a 9-court outdoor pickleball facility complex that's open to all and available to all Valley County residents and visitors. So subsequently, we worked with the county and Sherry, thank you so much for recommending and dedicating that land in Lake Fork. We've executed the memorandum of understanding, received a conditional use permit, and we started fundraising. Next slide, Doug. So this is where it is. Go ahead, next slide. We have completed. We've established our courts committee. We've obtained quotes and developed a budget. We've completed soil testing and land survey work. We've come together with a layout for the courts complex and parking area. We've had an engineering plan completed, grading and wastewater management, that was just approved by the county like a few days ago. And we have that grading plan. Right now, we're focusing on, of course, fundraising, but also completing pre-build items, ground clearing, and rough grading. And when we're fully funded is when we will move forward to install post-tension concrete pads, which is the best concrete you can make. It is definitely built to last. Renner Sports has built many of the pickleball complexes in the Boise area, including Hobble Creek, and they basically do a top of the line job. They're going to build something that is meant to last. Those pickleball courts, once they're built, they're going to be there for 30 years. So, chain link fencing, we would like to have a vault toilet. Right now, our budget only includes porta potties. But we would like to be able to put in a vault toilet into the budget. Those run about $60,000. So we're looking at that, but right now it's not in our budget. A storage shed, and then post completion, we're planning to operate and maintain the courts complex. Next slide. So what will it cost? $400,000. And this is kind of just a very rough, this isn't the full budget. The full budget is, of course, much more detailed. But this is basically what it will cost, $400,000 to build the courts. Next slide, Doug. We have raised $110,000 to date. This is all from people who care about pickleball and understand the importance of providing more pickleball courts in Valley County. Private donors, local business owners, and club fundraisers. So that demonstrates there's a great deal of interest and demand for places to play. Our kind of cash fundraising goal is $200,000, Doug. So how will we get there? We've got this 110 raised to date, and next one. Sorry, I don't know why it's doing that. Yeah, 110. We have been applying for grants. We received a pledge from the Harry Morrison Foundation. If we're able to raise 200,000 from non-governmental sources by September 1, they'll give us 25,000. We're looking at other potential funds. You know, we're always holding club events, tournaments, and yard sale. And we've recently applied and presented to McCall for lot tax funds. And we have an application in for the Lorimore Cunningham Foundation. So we're always looking also for other grants and ways to raise those funds. Next slide. So how will the other 200,000 be funded? Larry?
I'm glad you didn't spell my name right.
Would you please? Oh, did I not spell it right? Oh, dang.
When I first read that, I thought, well, isn't that nice of Larry?
Isn't Larry? I know, you know.
Well, I'm moving in with you.
Next, Doug. So we started looking at how we're going to come up with the other 200,000. We learned about Hobble Creek pickleball courts that were funded by Land and Water Conservation Funds in Boise. They were also constructed by Renner Sports, and I started researching a little bit into this Land and Water Conservation Fund. We set up a meeting with Mary Rosen just kind of to talk of what she knows about it. Then we attended some grant training that was conducted by Kathy Muir, who's the Idaho State Parks and Recs grant and manager for both state and federal funds. And she felt that this would be a really good qualified use of funding for pickleball. The next slide. So this Land and Water Conservation Fund provides 50-50 matching grants to states. And there's what's called a SCORP. It's a 5-year outdoor recreation plan. And in that plan, the current plan is 2018 to 22, but in that plan, pickleball is named as the top increasing need for outdoor recreation. So we're definitely right up the alley there in terms of those. So we kind of put together a group of people of who would be able to make us help this happen. Last week we had a meeting. Kathy Muir came up and we did a little presentation with Larry and Dave, and Mary Rosen is out right now, but she has indicated to us through our previous meetings that she would be happy to help with the application process, because it's all through the county, and the processing aspects, we can fill in, we've got all the data and can fill in all the needs. She just has to do the actual applications and then administration of the awards. So these are kind of the people that have been involved. So with this Land and Water Conservation Funds, there are some responsibilities or things that the Valley County would need to accept and say yes to. And so that's primarily why we're here today, is to talk about what these 5 key components are. And whether you make a decision or not today is, it's mainly to put it in front of you so that you have the understanding of what they are and that a decision can be made. And if if it turns out that this is just too much effort and not things that the county is willing to take on, then that's okay. We want to know if it's possible, and if so, then we can move forward with it. So one of them, so we're going to go through each of these 5: accepting responsibility for the area in perpetuity, establishing the boundary map, developing the community support plan, apply and administrate, and assume project cost responsibilities. So the next slide. Accepting responsibility in perpetuity means that the county has to retain and use that land for public outdoor recreation use in perpetuity, forever. The Valley County Pickleball Club goes away, whatever, the county still has to maintain that property in perpetuity. Next one. and I am no expert on this. Kathy Muir is an expert, but I am nowhere near an expert on any of these things. I just know what these 5 primary things are. So this boundary mapping, the National Park Service is land grabbers, and they're going to want to get as much land as they can, and you have to agree with the National Park Service as to what the boundary area, what the boundary map would be. So this is just some information. It has to be kept open, accessible, safe for public use, attractive and inviting, and an acknowledgement sign has to be posted in perpetuity at the location. Next slide. These are just this is just outlining the 2 parcels, the area, in the area where the pickleball courts are going to be located. Next. This is the project location. Next. This is a layout actually from the engineering firm of the how the pickleball courts will be. So if you can kind of see Lake Fork Road, and then there's that dirt access road. It's interesting that that access road is not on that particular parcel of land. There's those 2 parcels. The access road is actually on the other, I think, 80-acre parcel of land. But this is the area that we're talking about that would be for the pickleball courts. Next slide. And so when I first started looking at, okay, what could be the boundary area for this national park thing, this is what I thought. But talking with Kathy Muir, she said, well, they're probably going to want a little bit larger of an area. But this is kind of what the layout is, where the courts are. And that other kind of area to the side would be for potentially more parking and more courts. Next slide.
Evelyn, do you have any idea how many acres that is?
That right there is about 2.
And
Thank you.
when Kathy Muir was saying they would want something larger, I mean, what does that mean?
Well, Larry, can you speak to that, what Kathy was talking about with the...
It's set up to me. So Kathy said that they would react better if it was a larger project. And we have been talking about finding that original plan to turn that whole area in down there, whether it be a soccer field, after we get this done, soccer fields, dog park, baseball diamond, who knows? And then after Jeff's done digging, have places to go fishing for the kids and stuff, bicycle trails, hiking trails, the whole thing. That doesn't mean we have to use it for recreation right away. We can finish up with what Jeff needs down there, but in the long term, they'd like to see a bigger plan. That's all I got.
Thank you. So Doug, if you can skip back to that first slide that had the purple outlines on it. So what might be an idea, one forward, what might be an idea is to designate for this official boundary, if you designate it, if you just kind of cut this across here, that could possibly be the larger area. I'm perfectly fine if it's just a little, but it's just something that's out there. So back to us. So this is, go back one. So these are some of the prerequisites for the application. And, Kathy Muir has indicated that she is willing to guide us through all of this and work very closely with Mary Rosen to make sure that, we're qualifying and that everything would go smoothly. She thinks that it's a really good opportunity. And it actually, $200,000 is a very small piece compared to all of the funds that they have available. So this is just making sure that we meet the eligibility, that the funds are available. So it's not a short-term thing. This would be something, go ahead, Doug. This, and if there's any particular questions about some of these items, we would go to Kathy Muir for that. But basically, the maps, the evidence of control and tenure that, you know, the county owns the property, federal assistance forms. And so let's move on to the last and the biggest one. Assume project cost responsibilities. So the applicant agency, Valley County, would be responsible for the grand total in relationship to the completed project. So this is a 50-50 match funding where it's a reimbursement program. So we would have raised $200,000. The Land and Water Conservation Fund would have approved the $200,000 match. Then comes the administration of that. Well, we don't have another $200,000 to pay up front and to get reimbursed. So we would ask the county to be able to handle that for us. So as an example, I really know nothing about the treasury process or the funding, but what we're just kind of thinking is when work is completed, that Valley County Pickleball Club would pay half of the invoice. Say it's an invoice for chain link fencing and it's $60,000. We pay $30,000. Valley County pays $30,000. So there's that invoice paid to whoever, is providing the fencing. And then Valley County would file for the approved Land Water Conservation Fund, that has already been approved, but file for the reimbursement in that project. So that's a huge one. And the last one was community support plan. Basically, that's just a standard community support plan that the county would, you have to have a community meeting for input and whatever all those requirements are. So flow-wise, this is something that we would be starting the application process in the fall of 2022 and actually not receiving funds until spring of 2024. Well, we would like to break ground sometime this year, and so that we've got, basically groundwork done and ready to roll, continue our fundraising and apply for this funding. And Kathy said that it's could be fall of 2023, but it's more likely spring of 2024 that these funds would actually become available and we would actually start pouring concrete. And this is just some of the steps that have to go through. And if you want to have a separate session with Kathy Muir, bring her in here, she would be happy to help us with that. But anyway, it's a lot, and I'm sorry I've taken far more time than we were allocated this morning. But it's a lot, and we're really at that point of kind of needing help and decision to say, is this something that's worth all the paperwork and all of the effort to get $200,000? Is there something that the county would want to do in terms of a larger project where we would just be a small piece in that park? And if the answer is no to this Land and Water Conservation Fund, the requirements of the county, then that's okay, because we're still going to proceed. It's still going to happen. We're excited about it. There are ways for it to happen, and we'll just start looking for other possibly governmental options for additional funding. Have any questions?
That was a lot of information very
I know.
quickly.
I know.
One of the things, Evelyn, that we've learned up here is a lot of our recreation sites have long-term costs. When you talk about an upgraded bathroom, someone's got to clean it and maintain it and pump it. And so those are the costs that I'm assuming the county would take on those later on. And usually what that kind of leads to is a donation at that facility to help supplant that cost. Is the pickleball club welcome to that idea?
Yeah.
If your members had to donate $5 or something to play.
Yeah, I mean, we have a club. We have, we've got memberships. We actually have 135 members right now, and so those dues go to help support that. We also would put a donation box at the courts, because people that play pickleball that are especially, coming in from other areas, they are happy to donate to support the courts and the maintenance. Our indoor winter play location is Shiloh Bible Camp. We funded the floor for the gym that they built there, and put that surface and flooring in. So of course we could have pickleball court lines. And the people that play there donate. There's a donation jar that goes to Shiloh, but those donations completely heat the whole facility, heat and lighting all year round, just from the Valley County pickleball players that are playing there from end of October, and right now because the weather's crappy, in end of May. And so in that short period of time, in fact, even more than it costs them to heat their entire facility is covered by those donations. So yes.
Chairman, because we are so far behind this morning, I would like to recommend that we table a decision on this. I mean, I am fully in support of this. I will, help in any way that I can. But I'd really like our Park and Rec department to take a look at this entire project, give us recommendations on where, change would need to be made. Larry, if you see changes in this project. But I think this is a great opportunity to look at that entire site in the master plan and figure out our next steps forward. That would be my recommendation. I think it's going to be difficult to make a decision this morning without having our Park and Rec team look at it as far as our master plan, because we are starting a master plan for this. I think it's a great project. I think it's a great opportunity for us to move forward together. I think the grant in and of itself is a great way to go. That's my feedback.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was thinking that this seems like something that falls right in the lap of our rec department as far as for our representation, is to bring us a plan, to work with you and bring that plan back. And I appreciate the discussion here.
We could form an advisory committee.
You can help
There
with
you
our
go.
master plan. You can help with our
That's
master
a really
plan.
great idea.
I don't know if that's necessary in this
No, I'm
particular
just kidding.
But I would move to table this decision to a further date.
Yeah, and I'll second that, but for further discussion, I really do appreciate this. I think you've done an excellent job of putting it together.
Thank you.
And it's just something the rec department should be able to sink their teeth into.
Great.
And,
Well, and I think there's some other players in this too. Our road department, certainly. I want to talk with Jeff to make
Right.
sure that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot long-term for a
Yeah.
gravel source. I know that road you were talking about goes by there, it accesses a private gravel source in the back.
Mhm.
There's things that we have to do to protect that easement. So there's a lot to this, but I like the idea and I like the energy. So,
Oh, thank you.
Actually, I think that access was pretty important to this.
absolutely.
So that's important that we do actually have that.
Well, my concern is if we've got gravel trucks driving through there, when there's pickleball players, there's going to be some congestion, and we have congestion at all of our other rec sites right now. So we've got to plan for that and think about that as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of work to do, but I agree with these
Right.
guys. Great idea. Let's just wait for some more information, and I want to talk to Mary about the grant, the national grant, to see if she can handle that. If that's a lot of work, and I'm sure it is. It's something that the rec department and she want to take on. So, okay. So
All
we
right.
got a motion and a second on the table to table this for further information. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you for coming in.
Thank
bet.
you.
Thank you.
And don't keep us in the loop. Okay, we're gonna move on down. Doug, how long is it gonna take for Skip's budget? Is that a long one?
Probably
You should just sign off. It's perfect.
about 15 minutes.
Okay, so then we're gonna go into a budget workshop really quick. Shouldn't take about
Need
15
the other
minutes.
action item
Mr.
first.
Chairman, the presentation and decision on Idaho Department
Oh,
of Criminal Corrections Assessment
Oh,
Center.
yep, sorry, I missed that one.
Approved.
So who is gonna come with that one?
Well, we're all here together, but
Okay.
Tracy's gonna present the initial part.
So our next agenda item is an action item, presentation decision, but Department of Juvenile Corrections Assessment Center Grant. And welcome.
Hi. I don't know if you guys want me to walk up there, but I have.
Sure, yeah, it's okay.
It just kind of gives like a little summary.
Thank you.
We're just at the kind of the very beginning phases.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
It's a quick synopsis.
Tracy, just for the record, can you state your name and what entity
Okay.
you represent? Presenting on behalf of?
My name is Tracy Jamison, and I am founding Ignite Idaho Family Resource Center in McCall. It's for Valley County families in extended areas.
So is this like a crisis center?
So what we originally started it as, we have our own office, and people will call in and say, hey, you know, we're really struggling with this need. And then we either help them with that need or we outsource it to somebody in the community. We're working with St. Luke's, YAC, Central Idaho Counseling, The Rock, V Corp. So numerous entities are working with us to fulfill the needs of the community. So Skip kind of brought this to my attention. We had seen it a little bit, but IDJC has a grant that is going out for an assessment center, numerous assessment centers in Idaho. I've worked with the Shepherd's Home, Health and Welfare for 17 years and seen this gap that is really not being fulfilled, more so now in the last 2 years since COVID. So we put this resource center together and then saw this grant. It's a $4 million grant up to $6.2 million. Kind of on the back of the page, behind the summary, it shows a budget of us putting together for this assessment center. The biggest issue that we're seeing is the building and the land. We have some options, but basically at this point, the budget is showing us using what we already have and just having the additional funds. It's all through the grant, so there's no money that is necessarily needed at this time. We've put numerous grants already into play that possibly will help benefit this assessment center. So just looking down, you can see kind of, you know, putting together an executive director, an assistant. The assistant would basically do all of the assessments in the center. So for example, somebody comes in and they're like, you know, we're really in need of housing. So she would assess, are there any other issues? Are there drug-related issues? Are there, you know, or have you worked with health and welfare before? Putting all these pieces together, and then we say, okay, we need to outsource this. So, you know, your husband's an alcoholic, you're gonna go work with this company, you're gonna go work with this, and then Catch in Boise does housing for people, and then we outsource them to those, you know, entities, so. Another thing, I know, why don't you kind of mention them being ahead of the grant?
Yeah,
So-
And different, you know, options that we have.
So the idea is a center that does a lot of things, but part of it is the assessment part, okay? So this grant is only for the assessment part. It's unique where you can actually pay for brick and mortar or property, which is very seldom. And what we're asking Valley County to do is to file this grant so you could be the fiscal manager of it. It's the oversight of spending it correctly, send it in claims. It would then be sent to IDJC and back and forth with the money. So it's just the oversight. And according to the grant application, people, they said, you know, when we have a government entity that's supporting this, it's a lot stronger grant application because they feel more safe.
But IGJC runs the funds.
So
The
it's
claims would come to us and then we'd get reimbursed by IDJC.
yes and no. So it'd be, let's say we're buying property, okay? So we would put this, here's the property. We've already got the grant, say it's $1.5 million. We'd say, here's the property, we want to buy it. You put in that claim to IDJC, they would pay for it.
So really no funds would come from you.
Right.
They would solely come through that grant. We just thought, since we're a new entity, we do have our nonprofit, everything's already established, but if we had that government, overseeing it.
So we're a pass-through in this situation,
Yes.
funding-wise.
Yeah.
My concern is this. So you're a new 501c3. Every new 501c3 in this region might also want us to be that person, and we can't be that person for everybody.
Okay.
So how does this tie together as being a county-led center, of which, again, they're wanting a youth center in Cascade.
Right.
I don't want to be the grant writer for every single thing that's happening in Valley County.
So we don't
can't do that.
necessarily, we don't necessarily need you to be the grant writer. It would be more,
You'd be submitting the grant. This is also, the other thing about this, it's 1 year. So it's fiscal year for the state. It's July 1 through 2022 through June 31st, 2023. And so we'd be putting together, we just asked that Valley County submit the application, be the fiscal oversight for that year, and then you're out. You're done.
and some of the reasons we felt like this would be important is on the back, it kind of gives that summary of all of the needs that have increased just within the last 2 years.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay. Another thing that I was going to mention too is, they just had this resiliency meeting, and I know Shannon probably touched on this. The ACEs were wanting to catch these families before it's too late or before they're so far in that they just don't know how to get out. Kind of making it so that these children, before they become adults, we're able to help them and give them the resources that they need. So,
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it a requirement that when you apply for this grant, that the county administrator administrate the funds? Is that a specific requirement?
It is not.
But I think it builds a lot more good chance of getting the grant. if it is,
Absolutely.
Which I understand. My question is, if you're going to do it in McCollum and Cascade, why not the cities? And I just don't know the answer to that. Would that, could be.
City of McCall. But I mean, this is really, this is a help to our whole community. And we're also talking about including Adams County and Idaho County, where there's very little resources. And on the front end, what this does is it decreases cost and harm later on. So law enforcement pick up a runaway kid. It's a place where they could take him and say, hey, can you guys, and just do an assessment, have a place for them to hang out for a little bit. It's school referrals. Mom and dad are struggling. Hey, here's a place where you can go get a free assessment because it's free to them. And get that help in the beginning so it doesn't turn into something that ends up in the justice system later on.
I agree with all of that, Skip, and I'm fully in support of the process. This is my concerns. I'm sitting here just thinking to myself, okay, what if, Tracy, you make a mistake and somebody's injured, hurt, God forbid, you are sued for liability purposes? Because we are administering this. Is there a liability? All of the taxpayers in LA County. So we need to look at what the liability issues are. Have you ran this by Oki?
I haven't read the code, but I've looked into it, and we also asked. We got a long training on it.
yes.
And as the fiscal manager, that's the only thing that you'd be responsible for in liability form.
So misappropriation of funds
Yes.
would be where our liability would lie.
Correct.
For the,
Mhm.
I mean, I agree with this process 100%. I would love to see the county actually be able to provide this. Unfortunately, that's not fiscally financial or feasible right
Right.
now. Just thinking about doing grant management for a nonprofit just gives me pause.
Right. So another thing, we did go down to meet with the mayor in New Meadows because we wanted to let them know that this is kind of something that we were thinking about. So they are also putting in a grant for a center in New Meadows. And her thought was, if we did do something like this, so maybe Cascade could think the same way, is we can send our assessment person to their center, so they might not have to get those funds And one day a week, they're going to Cascade, one day a week, they're going to New Meadows, and they're outsourcing that. So our director, whoever is doing that assessment, will then also do it for the other towns and communities. So that does kind of benefit the overall community and surrounding areas.
But Trish, you're talking about an actual physical structure in each of the cities, correct?
So we have one right now in McCall at
Okay.
Park Street. Okay, that's the main focus. Eventually, we would like to have land in a building that has all the resources in it and the center. Okay, so anybody that we would probably need to use would have some sort of office there. Okay, but right now, so we can do it in a smaller capacity, we have one in McCall. People would meet us there. We would talk to them. We'd assess them. Or, for example, Jamie Coffey Kelly in Cascade that wants to do the one here might say, hey, Trace, I need that assessor to come over here and work. I have 5 families. I'm going to set them all up on Mondays. Then our person comes down, does all of theirs. Then Julie from New Meadows might say, hey, every Friday, can your person come down and do ours? So it's not like they're going, oh, well, you helped this nonprofit and it's not benefiting us. We want you to do the same for us. It might be encompassed in all of that. So everybody's getting that service.
We can also do it mobile service or over video. That fits within the grant and the assessments too.
So this is basically just to kind of line out the folks that are going to actually help with the treatment and assessment and all that stuff. It's not brick and mortar. It's not really land.
So this one that's sitting in front of you is literally just what you said.
Okay.
We would, once we hear, your decision, we may actually put in an additional piece on this grant, on this budget for brick and mortar.
And there's we're also waiting on the HRSA grant, which we're going to find out soon, which is a huge component of the sustainability of this. It's $500,000 for 4 years, and it's meant for this youth and family center. So this is a buffer adding to that. They're meant to work in conjunction as far as our planning and goals.
So the reason that I think that we might be able to do this and make it a little different is that we do have, unfortunately I'm not there very much, but we do have membership on B Corp. We have membership on YAC. We're collaborating with these other groups in a way that we don't collaborate with other nonprofits in Valley County. So that would be the only thing that I would say that would give us maybe the leniency to be able to do this. I don't want to open a Pandora's box. We have to think things through very carefully.
Absolutely.
Because we may have somebody come tomorrow and go, wait a minute, you did that for them. We want you to do this for us. We don't want to open that. That's not our capacity and what we shouldn't be doing as a governmental agency. So I feel strongly that this is a need in Valley County. This is something that actually is being done on our behalf because Valley County can't right now financially afford this.
Mhm.
So we've asked V Corp, The Rock, these other entities to do this work for us in the short term until we can potentially, do something in the future to satisfy this need in our community.
So I was trying to kind of wrap my mind around this a little bit, kind of why you're here and why it's important for us. And it sounds like, if I understand, this is a one-time grant, Skip explained. And without that support, that grant could be in jeopardy.
Absolutely.
Strong.
Yeah.
This is where I think it's kind of, I understand. So, what are we getting ourselves into? But the importance of this particular discussion is this is something that's available to right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can we be opportunist and can you help us
Yes.
with that? Is that
That's correct.
Yes.
size it up? And are we willing to then? Then it comes to us,
I'd like to suggest too, and I don't know what next Monday looks like, but just to have everything, like a final approval, if you're willing to consider this, we could submit it. It'll be exactly what grant we're going to be able to file with all the numbers, with everything in detail. It's just until we know about the HRSA grant, there's some things we could take off here because that will cover.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
And you're supposed to find out about that this week?
Yeah.
Okay. Doug, I would like your input as far as the clerk's office. Is this going to be something that, Would be- would be overseen by you or by Mary or?
More than likely, it would be overseen by the clerk's office, right? I have several questions just in relation to, is this grant with Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections? That's my first question. And is it, I've heard this a few times, this is a one-time grant, is that accurate? So this is not the brick and mortar grant that you have been
It is.
It will
is.
be. We did
So
not
what
add
is-
that.
I guess, what is the amount that at this point in time is going to be applied for?
So
I think we need to solidify exactly how that grant application is going to look. And I'm not comfortable that we're there yet.
Okay.
we're not, and that's why I said have that final approval on Monday. But to answer your question, this grant is from the governor's office. It covers behavioral health and whatever. So they give $10 million for assessment centers and crisis centers, and IDJC is managing this grant for the governor's office.
So commissioners, what I would propose, yes, the clerk's office would be involved, but the budgeting of this would be in Skip's budget. It would be under probation. We would have a grant line under probation. And of course, on the revenue side for the expenditures of this. If the commissioners do in fact move forward with approving this grant application and ultimately it is funded, we are going to be leaning on the court services, Idaho Ignite, to assist us with the expenditures of that, because unfortunately, we're not going to have direct knowledge of what these expenditures are being made, and we're going to have to trust that the invoices that are being submitted to us are in fact actual expenditures that were made. So that's where I do have some hesitancy, and we'll need to work very closely with all entities involved.
And I agree with that. And Skip, I'd really like to know what the long-term vision is also. This is a one-term grant, and we're going to be in support of that. But what is the plan after 1 year?
Long-term grant, and it's her vision, but it's a youth and family center. So.
How is that funded?
Well, this could be part of it through the brick and mortar. The HRSA grant could be part of it. We're working through our other constituents with B Corp and this huge coalition to partner together and do it. But it'd be a place where parents and kids, they could come in, they could get assessment, they could get treatment, they could get referrals to other services, they could get mobile crisis, they could get telehealth, and it would just provide that gap in our community that we don't have. So that's the big picture of it.
So Skip, then in other words, you're starting out with basically the nuts and bolts of how we handle it now. But if we ever get to where we have a full-fledged Intermountain Hospital or Cottonwood Complex, then this would go away and that would be private industry that would run that. Is that kind of what
No,
you're?
they're different. I mean, when you're talking
Quite a
about
bit
like
different.
Intermountain Hospital or crisis, I mean, this is just immediate service. Hey, I'm in trouble. I need help. My kids need help. Come in, get an assessment, get the help we need, get the family counseling, get the referrals for the other partners in our community that help people.
So
It's
let
in one
me
place.
say this. So in the last 2 months, we've been up since probably the beginning of the year running on our own. Okay, so we have had, over 20 women and children needing services, whether they don't have clothes for their kids, they don't have diapers, they don't have food, they don't have housing, they don't have a car. All of these have come within the last 2 months. We have been able to outsource or fund whatever they've needed on our own. Ignite Idaho Family Resource Center has done that. We have a small board. We have people collaborating with us. We've got the resources already in place to do this. We have other ideas where we want a safe house. We want, an immediate home for foster kids. There's a huge picture in this. The reason we're coming to you today is this is like laid in our lap, really. We have 1 year to fund this and spend it. And so saying, hey, man, this could really, it might have taken us 5 years to get here, but we're here. You know, for the last 17 years, I've worked with health and welfare, the Shepherd's Home, foster and adopt programs. I'm a licensed counselor. This is a huge gap everywhere. But we have this opportunity to say, hey, this money is here. We just have to prove that we can give it. We've done it for 17 years without the funding. I mean, I've adopted 7. You know, we found ways to get these kids the help they needed. Now we have this opportunity to have the funding that we've never had before. We're just saying, hey, you guys, as a governing agent, they're more willing to say, here you go. This is a lot of money. What are you going to do with it? We're more than willing to work with Doug on the logistics. Here's what we have to spend. Here's how much we pay this person. You know, all those details. We just want to say, rare do we get an opportunity like this in a small community to have something that we've already done for so long without that funding.
I think it'd almost be cleaner, and Doug, I'd like feedback on this, is if the county applied in our name and we donated it in some fashion.
And then that would be even
so that we're
less
not-
liability.
That's correct.
Yep.
So I move that we table this, let Doug and Skip and Tracy work on that this week, see if we can get it on for next week. I don't know what your timing is as far as having to have this done, but there needs to be some further clarity on
We
our
have to submit it on
responsibility.
the 28th. And we have.
28th of this month.
Yeah. We
Or
found
even
out
time
about it
next week,
on
Doug.
April 13th, so.
So we found out on it, and then we immediately went to a training in Boise. Anybody that wanted to apply had to be at the training, so we both went. And there's a lady named Holly, she's exceptional, and another guy named Josh that are also willing and may be able to meet with Doug as well to kind of give him some more information. Holly has one in Colorado, and Josh has one in Minnesota. So they both already have them funded. Both said that working through the government and also having a nonprofit is the most effective way to make this happen.
So Sherry, did you, I missed a little bit on, did you make a motion there?
Yes.
What-
So we
would you-
table this.
But the
for
thing
further
is,
information.
is tabling jeopardizing you?
No, because we really still need to put a financial piece together and make that as clear. So
Right.
there's no questions and you need to be able to see it.
Yes.
So I think that's an important piece. That was the intention. This part was just to get, can we move forward?
I think it's an awesome idea. I think we should move forward. Doug, do we have time next agenda? Nick?
I made some time.
Okay,
Thanks.
Yeah.
so we'll
Okay.
go from there. We're gonna table this until next week.
Okay.
You guys dial it in, get it close, get with Doug on it this week, and so we all know what we're stepping in, and
Okay.
we'll go from there.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
I really appreciate your time.
Unfortunately, the only date I have available this week is Friday.
Okay.
So Skip, if you want to make arrangements to meeting with me on Friday, if that works for you guys, I apologize.
We'll make it happen. Thank you so much.
So do you need a second on
No, we just tabled it. We're good.
the, okay, all right,
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
now we can do the budget workshop. Sorry, guys, we're running late. It happens all the time.
Commissioner, you did have a motion on the table. Commissioner
We
Mott,
didn't, did we get a second?
we did not get a
Yes,
second.
I think I'll second that.
Oh, you seconded it now? Okay, we have a motion second to table this item till next week. All in favor, please say aye.
Need one.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye, motion carries. Okay, Skip, you're up.
Keeps us honest.
Did you send us something on this?
This is my budget workshop. I
Should have.
should have gotten
But
it.
if not, I will.
I think it
Do I
was in
have
our
to
packet.
stand up and do this?
It's in our packet.
You can sit down.
You can sit there, Skip, yeah. You see if I can find it.
I can email it to you.
I saw one in
It's
our
gotta be here somewhere.
packet, I thought.
I also have a copy for you guys to look at. And this is just general information about the funding that we get through the Idaho Department of Juvenile Corrections. What this does is explains how we can use that money. And there's 3 different ones. There's tobacco, JAC, and then the lottery funds. So if you have questions, as I'm talking about requests, that's what we can actually use the money for.
So it's pretty much the same as last year.
It's pretty close. I mean, we didn't make a whole lot of changes.
So Skip, the opioid settlement, is that going through your office? Is that outside of Skip's realm, or do we
Yeah,
have
it
any of
is.
those funds yet?
No, we have not received any, Commissioner Mopin. All that we are aware is that the first distribution should be made. Valley County will be receiving approximately $12,000.
Then they just had another settlement with another pharmacy company last week. It was in the news.
So Doug, does
We
that
get
need to
some-
be under whose purview for that? We're gonna have to figure out
I
how
think
to.
the commissioners are gonna have to identify how they want that funding to be expended. If it's gonna be under the sheriff's office, if it's gonna be court services, if it's gonna be prevention. I think we need to identify how those funds will be expended.
The last I was hearing, we're waiting for Central District Health to kind of give us a bigger picture on how it can be used, because it was confusing. We talked about that. And I'm still not sure if we could just use it for like the recovery center and the ROP, or if it has to be only for opioid use, or if it can be used for substance use disorder in general.
And somebody's in the room that can answer that next.
Maybe. Just get through that. I know that the whole state has been asking questions.
Let's go ahead and finish this up and then we can move on.
Okay.
And
Is it-
Commissioner, I apologize. It should have also listed 0108, juvenile detention on the budget workshop. But we will just briefly review the requests for juvenile detention before we get into the court's budget or the probation budget.
So this is one of my budgets too, the 108. And what we're requesting is the same thing as we did last year, $1,500 for medical pension. So according to our contracts, when we send kids to Ada County or to Canyon County, if they get hurt, if they punch and break their hand, we have to pay for those medical expenses. Of course, we'll try to go through if they have insurance or Medicaid. We haven't had to use that yet, but just that it's there. We need to have some money there, if nothing else, just to be compliant with our contracts.
Okay.
The next is just $35,000, and that's just for housing kids.
Those are added items in blue, correct?
Those are what I'm requesting.
And then you can see last year's under D. Ed. So he hasn't changed his budget at all, it's the same as last year. What did we spend last year or this year so far on detention costs? Have you got that?
I do, Mr. Chairman, give me 1 minute.
So. It looks like 12,528 with this one, but I think there was one more billing after that. This was as of March 17th. So no, that should have been the final number, 12,500.
Out of the 35, is that right?
Yeah, the year before that it was 17.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those budgets. All it takes is one kid, because it costs $216 a day to house them.
Right.
You know, you get 2 or 3 kids in there, the serious cases. They're there for 4 or 5 months, and it can shoot through. But we had the 2 juveniles in there that were waived district court. We're paying $6,000 a month. And the only reason we didn't have to continue to that is because the court allowed them out on GPS model. I think we haven't used it all, hope we don't, but I think it's safe.
We're gonna go to courts next, which is what?
0654
So,
services.
Skip, in regards to this handout, is this regarding your budget? You receive special funding coming into your budget.
Commissioners, that's revenue, yes. That's what he's provided you, is the breakdown of revenue that we receive from Department of Juvenile Corrections, which assists with the costs of running the probation office.
And those are each fund that we get, and those are how you can use those.
Is there a formula associated with that, or is this a request
It's not a
for?
request, it's just information. So
I guess what I'm asking is the acceptable uses are a lot larger, I think, than anything that we're currently allowing. So do we get a specific amount of money every year from these guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we can't ask for more.
No.
Got it. even if we were to have these community service programs or, you know,
The only one on there that really can move up and down is the lottery fund, which is the last one. If somebody happens to win the lottery,
I would be me.
yeah, well, that happened when.
Can that be
when,
me?
Mr. Miller was, and it was like 18,000 we got that
We
year.
received a significant amount of money that we utilized to assist with court services costs.
What do we normally get?
About 2,000.
Oh,
For
that's-
lottery, we don't get very much.
Yeah. What
Between
do we-
$2,000 and $4,000. And the expenditures, I apologize, Skip, for taking your thunder, but typically that money is utilized for contributions to the high school sober graduation nights, is where that funding is usually expended.
We've done a few other things, but every year.
Used to go to commissioner's salary, but we stopped that years ago. No, just joking.
Go to pay for the juvenile probation officer salary, which they usually come out together right around $24,000. So about salary is paid by.
Okay, let's move on. And this is the probation budget. And as you can see, the only thing that's changed is the electronic monitoring, the second one from the bottom. He's bumped that from 1,000 to 2,300. And as the courts, as you guys know, the courts are doing more electronic instead of throwing these kids into juvenile detention. I think it's a great way to keep them still involved with their families. And of course, it saves us money, but that's not the reason to do it. I think that it's working better to keep those kids in with their families than it is to lock them up. So he's increased that part of the budget.
Also increased on the next page.
So is your
On the
travelage,
next,
your mileage, is that gonna be high enough with the cost of gas today?
I think so. I mean, the court officially starts back in person June 1 again. So my staff is gonna have to be here for certain things, not everything. And we have one county car, so that means that sometimes they're gonna have to do mileage, but when we made this increase last year, we had that in mind. And it's fine so far. Next year, we'll have a better picture.
Hopefully it comes down.
Skip, just because I don't remember, what was the youth tracker that you've unfunded? What was
So-
that about?
We made that position a part-time position.
It's under
because-
salaries now, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Pat felt that that was the proper way to do it instead of having a contract.
That's Sue.
Okay, any more questions on that budget? Okay,
So the lottery, I did ask Mr. Miller to increase that to $4,000. That's my request now for the contract lottery. He's right, we get 2,000 to 2,500 a year, but that sheet of paper explains what we can use the lottery funding for. It's very, very detailed. Those are the only things you can use it for. And then since working through the MDT meeting, hearing other needs in the community, we could use that money to support services for kids in the community that aren't in the justice system. So if we have an MDT meeting and we determine this kid really needs the support of a community service worker, there's no funding to use that. Sue could contract just independently with this for other people and say, hey, I'll go check up on this kid or I'll help mentor. I'll go to their house and I'll teach them how to cook a meal, or we could use it for something like this. It doesn't have anything in the community you can do, and we're going to have somebody take him out fishing, get him a fishing pole, show him how to do it. Open up resources or buy him a pass to the water place. So that's my request. And we have $10,000 you can't see of lottery money that hasn't been used.
You can see it's in remaining cash.
It's just not here.
you can also use this for foster care. So Skip, if you get a runaway kid, what are you doing with them now? Are they going to Shepherd's Home or where do they go?
I mean, when we had the detention center, we come there and we do unsecured hold. Right now, law enforcement's completely taking care of that.
You know what they do with them?
Well, so far, I mean, they've been trying to get hold of Shepherd's Home, and they're trying to make that an option. I believe there's good communication. But last I was talking to Officer Bannon, Deputy Bannon, and he had to drive the kids all the way to Boise in that snowstorm. 6 hours, he's with them for 2 hours, drive back and forth. So right now, that burden is on them, and that's part of this resource center too.
So do you know what the hitch is with the Shepherd's Home, why they can't take our kids? It's a health and welfare issue, I know that.
I think they're restructuring. They got newer house parents in there. And I definitely believe they want to, and they see the need, but they still have some things to work out with their policy and with the health and welfare to make that a process that works up here without having a health and welfare person. So, I haven't heard anything for that. I know Brian, prosecuting attorney, is working closely with them.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd probably be the person to ask on where they're at right now.
Well, and I think the county, I think we send them about 10,000 a year, Doug,
Yes.
to the Shepherd's Home. So it's something that we're watching, that if it's not gonna come to fruition, maybe we need to do something different with that 10,000, so.
I'm encouraged.
Well,
I think it's-
somebody knows in the back and she wants to get up and say it.
They just recently did have,
Can you come to the mic, please?
Sure. So, having been on a couple of the meetings with them, they did actually have an emergency situation and were afforded the opportunity to take a child in without going through health and welfare. And that is definitely the direction that they're moving. Oh, Suzanne Mack.
So
sent
Suzanne,
this.
do they get reimbursed then by health and welfare for that kid?
That was not a concern at the time. I don't know the backside of it. I just know the front side, that they were ecstatic that they were given this opportunity, because typically the laws are set up differently. And there was, for some reason in this situation, they decided to offer them that grace, and the child, it worked out beautifully. So they're moving in that direction. That is their goal.
Well, and I think that's awesome. That's what we've been wanting to hear that for a long time, but they need to get reimbursed for those costs as well. So we need to work on that particular issue too, so.
So the temporary shelter home, is that something that we could help reimburse on those costs, or?
If it's,
Oh, yeah.
if it's on there, but,
All these
so
back
it's
here.
just,
Yeah.
I plan on continuing to donate, or we do, to the Sober Grant every year. And that usually comes out to about $1,200. And so I'm asking roughly $3,800 for opportunities in the community to help kids where they need it. And that's what the money's for. It's given to us by the state, and I think we can do a better job. That still will leave, probably about $8,000 left
In the lottery fund.
and
Okay.
then again, we'll get another 2,000 or so.
I'm in support of that.
Okay, anything else we need to know? We all good, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Chairman, we are. Commissioners, Skip has not identified any new positions that he is asking for fiscal year 2023. He explained to us that he feels like he's adequately staffed. He would like to continue with the youth tracker. And Commissioners, this is the budget request for the court services for fiscal year 2023.
Perfect.
Thanks for keeping your budget as thin and as trim as possible. I think there's a little space in there. There's some, where did I see it? Miscellaneous probation costs, things like that you can use some of that funds if you go over or somewhere else, but there's enough in there, I think, to get you through.
I agree.
Commissioners, just for your information, and Commissioner Allen, for your information, for the SCRAM fees, UA fees, and electronic monitoring fees, Skip does attempt to collect those fees from the individuals that are utilizing that. So that's not just taxpayer dollars that are paying for that. That is user fees that are help supporting those costs as well. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
Commissioner Allen was fully aware of that.
That's interesting, if we can actually recoup.
And he's
some of
actually
that.
really good at getting those fees. I don't
Yeah,
know.
We've been pretty good. And
Pretty
we've got,
darn
we've
good.
got a court set up
Yeah.
where if somebody can't afford it, so they can get a waiver fine.
Okay,
all right,
if
thank
no
you.
more questions, we're gonna move on. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Yep,
you.
we'll see you next week. And I apologize for us running late on our agenda, but it's a pretty full one this morning. We'll move on to our presentation from Central District Health on fiscal year 23 budget.
Mr. Chairman, I really apologize. Can we just take like a 5-minute break?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's do
Hey,
it.
you guys want to come up to the table and get set up, and we'll take 5 minutes and be right back.
Oh, golly. The middle. Suzanne, I haven't seen you in ages. I've been good, and you?
How are you, sir?
You've been in the health area there for quite a few years now.
11 years, I guess.
How's everything else going with you?
It's going very well.
How are
Trying to
you?
go out and hike. And
Yeah, good.
how about you? Do you still have goats?
I don't have the goats
Oh, you
anymore.
don't? You
No,
don't?
kind
Okay.
of didn't use them. We kind of started getting older and we weren't using them quite as much. So, yeah, it's time to,
Be right back.
Yeah, we start. And, I don't know, it's busy and I agreed to do this and I'm going, I don't know. But you know what? It's so interesting.
There's so much to learn and there's a lot going on.
And people
It
my
just-
age shouldn't be doing it.
It keeps you connected too, which is really
Yeah.
exciting. You know,
Yeah.
it's fun to know what's going on
It
in your,
is.
in your
It kind of
community.
is, really. Isn't it?
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is.
No, I'm trying to tell Mary still working over
She
there?
is.
She
yes.
is, isn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's over there as our WIC
Uh-huh.
clinician still.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now we have a environmental health specialist that's on site.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes coming up from Boise and sometimes on site. And some office support. And, yeah, just doing a lot of what we.
Are you
this year.
connected directly with the Central District Health, or are you
I'm
just
kind of a representative because I'm the one
representative
who
of
manages,
local? Mhm.
because I manage those
Right.
on-call
Mhm.
office. So these guys can help. Our
Mhm.
director.
Are you gonna be around for
Yeah.
a few years?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we'll
one of those
see.
people that
Yeah.
can't stand to quit being valuable.
I don't know about that. So do you still have, didn't you have a poodle?
I do.
Do you still have?
We actually have the third poodle.
Oh, you do have,
you know.
okay.
And she's a nice little girl, Rosie.
Oh,
She's not
Rosie.
little. She's bigger than those males I had.
Oh, I love the name though.
Yeah.
Rosie, that's really sweet.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
that's
finally
great.
got when the old Bucky got really kind of old and
Okay.
crippled, and saw this one, and you may know what's her name? Is it Walker? So I want to say Erin, but that's not right. Paige.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
She. Well, anyway, she
That's right.
she was up North Beach here several years ago, of course, now 5-7 years ago, and they had these beautiful little black poodle dogs with them. Her and some other people, and I inquired about it, and I said, "Oh yeah, we got them from the and our dog was getting pretty old, and so I landed. Long and short story, I landed up getting one of them, thinking, okay, I'll
So you
get
have
this
to-
little girl. She won't be as big."
Darn near these days, you
Yeah.
have to insure your
Yeah,
animals.
she,
There's-
absolutely, it is amazing now,
Okay, yeah,
Suzanne.
that-
And,
that's nice.
but I got the neatest dog story though, but we don't have much time for it. We went fishing at Duck Valley last weekend. We actually went on Wednesday, just got back yesterday. About 2 nights ago, this really skinny little dog showed up at our camp in the middle of the desert. I mean, and just famished. And our dog, I had the dog, and it was a bowl of food to let her. She just immediately went over to start clomping down. And my dog walked over, and she was going to tackle her. She was so hungry. Well, it's a little beagle.
Oh, little beagle.
Yeah, and it was, I guess, or at least mostly
Beagles are so
beagle. Yeah,
cute.
and it's a cutest little dog you ever seen.
You brought it home?
Oh, we brought it home. We landed up
Oh,
calling
God.
everybody in Nawahi and all those the Indian
You
reservations.
take horses too?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, so when
We-
we want to put our animals out to
And-
pasture, just put them over by.
But
But we
Ed's
ended
house.
up going, we can't leave the poor girl. I mean, it's,
No.
it's out in the middle of the desert. It's a long ways from town, and it'd been out there a while because it was really hungry and skinny, and we landed up bringing it home and tried to dump it in Boise, but we couldn't get a hold of them and landed up finally saying, bring your
there you go. You got another dog.
Just go, God.
You gotta need to mark approved on that up here.
Yep. So, okay, thanks. What's that?
Just for your information.
I can deliver it.
Free? Free of charge?
I wonder if Doug,
$195,000 actually.
Yeah. 192, I thought. Has it gone up?
Oh, man.
ask if Doug needs a copy of that before.
Oh, yeah, we might need a copy of that.
You can just.
He'll get it to you.
Us Duke.
Ed Allen,
Commissioner
Ross.
Russ.
Russ.
Yeah,
Good to meet you, Russ. I'll let you know.
Central District Health and the
Yeah.
director down there.
Good.
We're up here, I guess,
Yeah.
it's everywhere.
So we just had a vote on one of your members this morning.
Yeah, Jean Young, Dr. Young.
And I didn't know anything about her. I kept trying to find a few little things, but it sounded like a very good candidate, good
Yeah,
person.
Commissioner Ashbrook's worked with her for all the
Yeah.
years he's been on the board. She's a doctorate in nursing practice, so she's a nurse practitioner that has her doctorate degree, and she has a business with 2 medical clinics in Boise.
Right.
She's been on the board for longer than I've been there.
Oh,
Longer than I've been too.
Yeah.
Russ sounds
That'd
great.
be at least 10, 12 years.
Really
Yeah.
good to have people have that continuity.
Yeah, she has a medical perspective and business
You're a
perspective.
staple.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
nice that she has.
How long have you been there?
business, too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
When are you, when are
Russ.
you gonna retire?
Yep. Last name Duke, D-U-K-E.
4 more? I got 2.5.
Hi, Doug.
How are you, sir?
Good.
90
I think I have
here
a
this
budget
time.
there. Shelf, I gave it to you, and then if you want to copy that, I can take it back to Donna, or if you want to scan it. I'm sorry, not that. This.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I can take it back instead of
No, I can
email
manage
it.
that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, though.
Yeah.
Okay, our next agenda item is a presentation from Central District Health on fiscal year 23 budget. So we'll turn it over to our esteemed director, Mr. Russ Duke. Mike, Suzanne, everybody's here to tell us where we are and what we're doing.
So, you have Suzanne, she runs the McCall office, pretty much, would you say that? Run the Valley County office, extension into other counties, at least Adams.
Yep,
She
pretty
runs
much.
McCall. Come on, let's just be honest.
The whole city.
Pretty much couldn't live without her.
Broaden that whole concept.
Little role with her side jobs, a Central District Health gig. Mike Reno is here because he manages all of the land programs for Central District Health. And Tom White was our environmental health specialist. He has since left CDH, left the state. And then I think Friday, Jack Nygaard, who has been working out here, also left.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, Mike,
We're running him out. That's fast.
Well, he got offered $4 an hour more to work in District 3 he was making here.
And didn't have to travel probably, huh?
Well, he's got to go. There's part of the deal when we hired Jack up here was that he moved up here within a year because our goal is to have somebody who lives up here. There's not affordable housing right now, and so it's that. And he got the offer for $4 an hour more. We probably could have, he's going to do for Merit and the travel to and from Caldwell every day. We could have probably finagled that, but there was just too much at stake, with him not knowing in a year if he'd even be able to move up here because there's just nothing, and he thought that, if he couldn't, then there's a possibility he could lose his job. If we thought that, yes, there is affordable housing, our idea of affordable may be different than his, because, obviously he doesn't want to move up here and his whole paycheck going to living expenses and not having any quality life, just to be here to work. And so he thought with all the indecisiveness of where everything would look in a year, that it was probably the best move for him to go to District 3, even though it was going to not be really that much advantageous as far as financial, there was an increase. So he's leaving.
This affordable housing is an issue for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
it is. Well, and it's all over now. It's not, you guys dealt with it, the peaks and valleys in a pretty big way, with the 08, 09 crash, then devalued properties, and now we're way beyond where we were at that peak. And the sheer unavailability is the problem. So we have, we're now, you sit on the board, so when Tom leaves and Jack leaves, trying to refill those positions is incredibly difficult. And to be able to offer competitive salaries, which I made a pitch to the board to budget request, and you guys decided something different. And this is 20% turnover last year. We've never had that at our agency, and people aren't leaving because they don't
buy the mission and don't like their supervisor. Most of them are leaving and are getting paid more.
Huh.
We lost, I think probably 5 staff this last year to St. Luke's. And they're not even the medical staff. There's health education specialists. So it's just a tough economy right now. And maybe things will settle out in a different way over the next year or two.
It
What
doesn't
kind of
help
a-
when District 3 just bumped all their people up $3 an hour more than we're offering, and District 5 is doing the same. So
And I
on
think
either side of us, we're competing with the other health districts.
And I think District 2 was looking at a 7%.
You would think that there would be some kind of state control. You guys are all doing exactly the same work on behalf of the state.
Yeah.
But why are we have such constraints on the budget that we can't continue to be competitive?
So that's what I'm here to talk about is the budget. So what we have is our budget is made up of the bulk of our money, 40% comes from the federal government to mostly the Department of Health and Welfare. And then it comes out to us, they call them sub-grants, they're contracts. Basically, they're very prescriptive. Here's what you have to do for this amount of money, and you either sign it or you don't. Used to be, which I wanted to visit with you about, and I want to be mindful of your time, so I want to get through the budget, but there's a lot happening this year, as Doug knows, with the House Bill 316 and the changes happening.
Russ, I'm communicating with people that are after you, and please take the time that you need.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So 40% federal government, 20% county, 20% state, 20% fee revenue. That's changing. So it's going to be 40% federal, 40% county, and 20% fee revenue. So the budget challenges are on the contract side, you have to figure out how to do the work that they're asking us to do. And obviously personnel is about 80% of our overall budget. So we're a service industry. So it's a big chunk of what we do. And it's not personnel, a lot's going out and trustee and benefits, which pays to do work in the communities. Like we hire folks up here to do tobacco cessation. So that's going out. It's still paying people's salaries. So with that, the area that I looked to was the board has control over is the county contribution to our budget. So, and I also am mindful of your budgets, and that's why we've always asked for what we consider fair and reasonable every year is about a 3% increase to the counties. So that's kind of it. That's what we're kind of constrained because we operate off of tax dollars, and we're mindful of that. But so are these other agencies,
Right,
Health and
yeah,
Welfare,
yeah.
District 3, which bookends us to the west, and District 5, which is the other bookend to the east. People are more likely to go to District 3 because they live in a community and it's close by, whereas Twin Falls, you got to move if you're going to go over to that health district. So we do have money, as Commissioner Hasbrook knows, but it's one-time funding. Like we were able to build up a pretty sizable, what we call reserve funding for emergencies and for, we're going to have to put a new roof on our building in Boise. I can't even imagine what that's going to cost. It's 43,000 square feet, and with the price, that would assume we could actually get somebody to do it, show up, and get the materials within a year or two. So, yeah, it's
You better put in your request now.
I know. So it'll be done by the time I retire, hopefully. But it's just a really tough environment to work in right now, I think. And you see it. We present the one-time money. How that got built up was we were getting all the COVID funds. So for my time, instead of charging to the county budget, I was charging to COVID contracts, which they're fading, they're going to go away. So we have one-time money. One of our board members suggested, why don't you put that into salaries? And see, you guys, you don't put one-time funding into an ongoing liability, and salaries are ongoing. And you're not gonna reduce people's pay when the money runs out. You'll lay people off, which is the last thing we wanna do.
So how are the other health districts giving larger pay increases
Yeah, that's, yeah.
if they're in the same funding structure?
So it's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So District 7 out of Idaho Falls, their budget is not set for fiscal year 23. Ours starts July 1, not October like yours does. They gave their board, who's made up, I think, probably all county commissioners, I think, except for the physician, already implemented raises for FY 23. I can't remember what they were, 7, 10%, 12% raises for their staff before their budget is set. It doesn't make sense. District 3 just did the same
They're
thing.
gonna come back and have to skim all that back when they finally see the numbers.
Either the counties are gonna contribute more, they're all saying, well, we can't, more than whatever a modest amount is. So I would never,
So they're not being fiscally responsible by doing what they're doing.
But they're being organizationally responsible. They're trying to keep their good people.
yeah, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I understand that, but you gotta have a budget to be able to do
Yeah.
that. If you're
You do.
promising something that hasn't been committed, then.
I agree.
But
Well, and there's another way you can do that, and we had to do it years back when I first started. We closed the juvenile detention center down and used that funds to give everybody a raise. And that 35,000 you saw today, that used to be 340,000
oh,
to run that. And so that's where, so you cut some service and you use those funds to supplement your salary, but pretty soon you're not doing any services, and then people go, what do we need you for?
Yeah. Well, and the thing of it is, when you cut services, if we have contract funds coming in, for example, it doesn't make sense to cut those services unless they're subsidized by, the local tax dollars, which is House Bill 316, which I'll talk through here in a minute. So you can cut services, and we did that in 08. We eliminated our adult immunization program. We eliminated the senior nutrition Meals on Wheels program, which was only Elmore and Ada County anyway. But we lost $750,000 of state general fund during that 3-year period of time during the housing recession. So we made changes. It just, then you're forced to do it. Now it kind of doesn't feel quite right to cut services and then pay staff more, although we do need to pay staff more and keep them. So it's just this weird.
Well, you're in
kind
an emergency situation now with the home building the way it is up here. Mike, if you don't have any help,
It's gonna be
I don't
me
even
to
know.
help.
Yeah, how do you
I'm
even?
gonna be covering Valley County
Yeah.
by myself, so.
But he still has Boise to cover and Ada and
Elmore.
Belmar as far as overseeing and helping and.
Going in for vacations
vacations
and
and-
turnover, and I think we had in Natasha's, the facilities, the food side, we had 100% turnover. They're all new staff within the last year.
The problem is, we advertised for almost 2 months to try and find somebody to come up here when we found out Tom was leaving, and the only applicant we had who was qualified was somebody out of Connecticut who wanted $125,000 a year plus moving expenses, which.
yeah.
Well, and the qualifications are what I'm concerned about is, you've got to have specific degrees to do what you're doing. And that's where we're not, I sit on the Workforce Development Council, and we are not seeing people enter these fields, which are actually going to be able to fill your positions, no matter how much money you pay them. If you don't have the accreditation and the certificates, you're not going to fill that.
Yeah, so
You
you
get a lot of people out of Boise State's environmental health program, but they are now going to be changing that to strictly
Environmental sciences or
environmental sciences or studies, which we can still use as long as they get the required science credits. But they're going to focus more on industrial hygiene than anything. So we won't get the person who's got the well-rounded degree all in environmental health, but that's fine. We can work with what they put out, but we do get a lot of people out of BSU's program.
yeah.
I wonder if there's a way that we could use the installers, the septic installers, and train those guys to where they could look at some of these systems that they're putting in be certified or something like that?
We can, we do allow them to do as-builts, if we can't get to a final and it's an installer that we know and we trust, and that they're gonna do a good job, we'll let them submit an as-built drawing in lieu of us coming out for a final. Where we don't allow that is if it's, you get somebody coming out of Gem County that we don't know.
Right,
Right.
right.
Or it's a complex system that requires a pump. We've got to verify certain things on the pump and the electrical, that's hooked up properly before we can sign it off. But we do utilize that allowability to let somebody do an as-built drawing, and we're probably going to utilize that a little bit more this summer so we can keep up.
You're almost going to be forced to. There's a lot of older guys still around, but there's a lot of new installers too. I just trying to figure out how we could offer training and classes or whatever, so these guys can handle it. I don't know. You're going to burn yourself up.
Well, we had Jerry last year in Boise County. He was working almost 60 hours a week. Keep up, and so we don't see anything changing. We're trying to back end it, by the food side of it, having Natasha's group do more of the food during the summer. So it frees up the guys to focus on the land and on-site sewage. Like we have Tyler, our public water specialist guy, who's going to be doing, at least 100 establishments in Valley County this summer, as well as handling all the majority of the calls, with regard to mobile units and those kind of things. So he's doing that to relieve that pressure. But last summer, we had 2 people working full time up here. So
Is Jerry still in Boise County?
Yeah,
For now.
For now. The other thing that might be in our favor is a slowdown. Where all of a sudden, because we're seeing a few people coming back in requesting a refund on their building permits because they're not going to build because everything is so expensive and they're going to wait. So that might help a little, but that's just shoving it down the road. The work's still there. It's just getting
Right.
moved.
And I'm sure you see all the land development applications for subdivisions and stuff that have been coming through. And so
Oh my gosh.
we go out on all those. We do test holes on every lot. We require groundwater monitoring. Then we're spot checking. And we're reviewing the data as it comes in, as well as all the engineering before we grant approval. So that's a big process that I have been doing in Boise because Tom just didn't have time and Jack didn't have the knowledge how to do it. So for the last few years, I've been doing all that out of Boise. As far as the reviews and stuff, the initial test holes were done by Tom and Jack, though.
So Mike, is there a code or anything policy that says somebody calls for a septic install or septic test or septic, groundwater, whatever, that you have so much time to do that, and then if you don't get it done, they can proceed?
There's something vaguely, which is a 48-hour business day.
Oh, really?
There's
48
something
hours?
really vague in there, but we usually, most of the installers are willing to work with us because, we're working with them, waiting on them all the time, and
Sure.
And so it was not uncommon when Jeff Lappin was up here by himself for him to be out 2 weeks. And it's not uncommon for our inspectors in Boise County and Valley County to be out 2 weeks. I know in District 3, they've been out a month and a half on even issuing permits. We do try and get permits issued next business day, which we've managed to do. And, if we've got all the information to keep the wheels moving, but as far as inspections, we could be, a week or 2 out, which is not abnormal up here.
No, but that's when we start getting calls.
Yeah.
I can't get your guy to come up here and inspect my hole. What's the deal? And then, it's a vicious cycle. I hate to say this on public TV, but I think it's time we went through a slowdown to kind of regroup here, and maybe some people will get hungry and want to come back to work. But I don't know. It's a whole different group.
To go along just for that question, when we just had a group in here a few days ago saying, we basically need to slow down. And they're working on some thoughts on that process, but I'm looking at what you guys do is really critically important to our growth. Just from an environmental standpoint, nothing else. Right. And I know you talked about the 48 hour. The 48 hours is well, nothing we can do, move on kind of thing. And I don't think that's probably a good approach to, any of this stuff. I'm asking for a septic. I shouldn't be saying, well, we don't have time to visit you within 48 hours. Go ahead and do whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not a good plan, and so are we looking at maybe this is just one of our other areas that we just have to say, you know what, guys, this is what we'll provide the best we can. But I mean, what you're explaining about losing people, we're getting, somebody else is out business for these guys.
I've never had, in my experience of the 28 years I've been doing this, somebody go out and just cover the system without inspection because we would be on 48 hours.
Yeah.
Never happened.
So is it possible, instead of hiring employees, that we think outside the box and do it on contractual basis?
We're looking at that. In fact, that's what Mike and I talked on the way up here. We've been looking at it, but it's still trying to find somebody that's willing to do it. And then you always have not exactly salary equity, but if you pay somebody twice what somebody's making in Boise just to get them to do the job, because they wouldn't have the benefits and what have you, but it's just tough. Then you got the morale issues, and it's a kind of a vicious cycle, but we are looking at that.
We also don't have the housing issues.
Right.
That's up to them to deal with
Figure
all of
that
the
out,
issues
right.
that we're having.
And they build that into the contract. The dollar amount they expect or demand, not expect demand, or they won't do the work. So that's something we're looking at, just thinking then you don't have the ongoing commitment because they're not employed by, and thinking about this summer where you have the food and all the temp events and everything going on. If we could bring somebody on board, at least maybe through September. So we're looking at that, but it's hard up here because it's a 2-hour drive from Boise, and that's where housing used to be affordable, but not anymore.
Used to be.
Right.
We better move on, and we got some more stuff on the agenda, so let's hit the budget.
So I'm going to walk you through each page. Like I said, I'll go through it as quickly as I can. Please stop me if you have questions. I'm going to start with page 1. So what you'll see there is the expenditures and the revenue. And under the expenditures, we moved money out of our operating cost into T&B. So our budget has gone up quite a lot. There's still a lot of COVID money coming in, and over $2 million of that is ARPA funds that we requested from Ada County. So Ada County got $94 million in ARPA funds. So we had requested money from them to expand our home visiting in Ada County because the population's there. Although percent-wise, you guys grew more last year. If we don't get that money, this budget will be less than what it shows here. Basically $17,457,000. We took the capital out because the capital is truly the one-time expenditures, just to be able to compare from year to year. It's not out of the budget; it's in the budget. But I just pulled it out so you could see. You can see the variability in capital right at the line above the total expenditures there. So before I go on to revenues, this is our budget, but based on how our revenue comes in, it's going to change. The commissioners are going to meet this Friday to vote on our budget, and we're meeting in Horseshoe Bend, and Commissioner Hasbrook will be there. By the following Monday, we may have a new revenue stream or lose a revenue stream, but this is the budget I'm presenting to you. So this is the plan for the year. So,
Russ, talk to me
Yes.
about your increase in FTEs. If you guys are having a hard time filling, in what areas of the health are you increasing your FTEs?
So a lot of the FTE increase, so compared to what we budgeted in 22 to today, we have a home visitation program, which the state has given us money for, and we worked out a deal. Basically went to certain legislators to get Medicaid to pay us for our home visitation program. So that's going to add probably about 3 or 4 FTEs, probably 4 FTEs. So a lot of the increases are happening we also received money that's COVID specific funding, but we're allowed to use it for other things like vaccination. So all of our vaccination rates have gone down. COVID vaccines caused the public perception to shift away from what you would call the traditional childhood vaccines and teen vaccines, to where people are not getting their kids vaccinated anymore. So some of the money is going to focus on health education specialists and registered nurses. Health educators we can hire. Nurses are extremely challenging to hire, especially when you're looking at RNs. So those are the main positions. I got just slightly ahead of myself. I didn't explain the process. So the process is the Board of Health approves the budget. They did that on April 15th. I come around and I visit with all of you, like I'm doing now. All of you being all the counties, you're the last one. And then this Friday is when, and this is all in Idaho code, the chairs of each of our 4 counties get together and they vote on the budget, the whole budget. So that will happen this coming Friday in Horseshoe Bend. I didn't explain that, sorry about that. So this is the proposed budget. Chairs of each of the counties will vote on it on Friday, and if they don't agree with it, they have till the first Monday in July to agree on a budget.
And we've always agreed in the past.
100% so far since I've been here. Not always 100% in agreement, but the majority vote.
Majority.
Yeah, simple majority. The counties who disagree with it, if they do, which they have in the past, they have to pay anyway by law. So it's not like you can say, well, we're gonna opt out this year,
You
thanks
just
for.
one member of the voting and it's simple.
Yeah, simple majority, and then it carries for all counties.
And your contracts have gone up 57%.
Yes, and that's what I talked about, the sub-grant funding. So it's a lot of the ARPA money coming through health and welfare, Ada County that I mentioned.
Got it.
And then it's, and that basically, that will also include the ARPA funds that we've applied for from Ada County.
So is this an in and out fund, basically?
Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly right. We would never, and I appreciated the discussion earlier, being part of that with the juvenile corrections and ACEs and trying to figure out how to keep kids out of foster care. And I think it's incredibly important, but if it's one-time, one-year money, it's like, well, then where do we go from there? So these funds aren't going to get passed on to the counties. I'd say counties and state, but the state's pretty much out of it now. So the board has oversight of all these decisions and everything we do.
Can I ask that real quickly? I should know probably, but why is the state dropped out?
Yes, you shouldn't know it. It would be something you would know, but I do. So I'll explain that to you in 2 minutes or 1 minute. So let me
Good
do
luck
the
with that.
Thank you.
revenue side.
Yeah.
I'll take more time than 2 minutes, but I'll explain it in 2
Oh,
minutes.
okay. Got it.
So you'll see the county funds go from 2.5 million to 3.2 to 5.1.
Mm.
And you'll see the state appropriation line under revenue go from 2.3 to 1.7 to 0. So what happened with that is there was a bill passed. Doug, you probably, I should know this. It had to be 2020, House Bill 316. When that bill passed, I think I got that date right. It said that the state share for funding the public health district will be phased out. And the counties, you are responsible to make up the difference.
Using indigent dollars, or that was an option.
It was an option. It was the discussions that some people would say, well, that really wasn't the case. Well, it was the case. So you all the counties were taxing for indigent services. And when Medicaid expansion was passed, not by the legislature, but by a ballot in November of 2018. January 1 of 2020, those individuals who used to come to you, and I know there's mental health holds and there's burials and other stuff that the money's still used for, but the largest share of that money that people were coming to the county to request basically to pay St. Luke's or Cascade Medical Center, reduced dramatically. Didn't go to zero, but it reduced dramatically. So the legislature, how they tend to operate is they said, well, now the counties have theoretically extra money, but you wouldn't be taxing for money you didn't need, I assume. So they gave you two options, and Commissioner Hasbrook, you can share. It was either you're going to give up revenue sharing or you're going to fund the health districts. You guys choose. You don't get a third option, which is to do nothing. So the Idaho Association of Counties, Seth Gregg and team, and the counties, at least most of them, said, we'll fund the health districts. Because most counties across the state, if you looked at what you were paying out in indigent care, mostly went away after Medicaid expansion went into effect January 1, 2020, compared to funding the health districts. All of our counties end up in the black. If you just looked at those two. But I know there's other factors. I'm looking at Doug, so you can chime in if I'm missing anything. So that's the story. So this is the process of transitioning.
Well, I think it's really important to understand that the reason why all this started was because the voters approved Medicaid expansion in Idaho. And the legislature came to the county and said, we're going to reduce your revenue sharing, which is sales tax. You're going to lose this much, or you're going to take over funding the health districts. And in the meantime, they came back and done away with the indigent levy. It's no longer even available now. So we're going to take those levy dollars that we used to spend and we're going to give it to the health districts. And I think in our case, we're going to come up with around, $40,000 left. And I'm hoping that we can use that in a general fund to do the burials and some of the other indigent costs we know we're still going to get. That it was kind of forced on us. And the revenue sharing was a bigger hit than if we'd have done away, if we'd have taken revenue sharing instead of doing away with the indigent and all that stuff, we'd have been hit even harder.
Right.
So we said, no, we want to stay in revenue sharing. Your turn.
Thank you. So on page 2, in the box, you'll see basically that first column, FY22, the amount that Valley County contributed to Public Health District 4, Central District Health, was $122,000. A year before, I can't remember exactly, but it would have been in the high 90,000.
98,000.
98,000. So the legislature, when they put it into effect, it was implemented March 1st of 2022. So the last year's budget included 4 months of the counties basically paying 4 months of the state's share. This year, the remaining 8 months get shifted over to the county. So basically you're paying 100% of what the state used to pay. So the current budget, you're already paying a quarter of what the state used to give us. This budget, you're paying 100% of what the state used to give the health districts.
And they also sent a base budget for the health districts when the state pulled out that we can't go lower than this base budget,
FY21
which I think was very important.
Right.
So that some counties say, then forget it, we're just going to do away with public health. No, you can't, because the code says you got to have a base salary to keep those guys in business.
Yeah. So what this budget includes is that very top line within the box shows a 58.2% increase, but it is actually a 58.2% increase, but it's a 3% increase compared to last year. That's what this budget is for the counties, except now the state shares rolled into that. So Valley County's share, if the budget is approved on Friday, is $195,678. And how this gets divided up, you might ask, well, how do you figure out what Valley County pays? Is on page 3. It's 30% based on market value, 70% based on population. And those figures are from the Census, U.S. Census Bureau, and then the Idaho State Tax Commission. We just get the most recent data they have available. And then it runs through a formula. So the county shares this amount, and then a portion of Valley's portion is based on their part of market value and population. So it's kind of shocking, but I guess it shouldn't be, that overall market value in our health district year over year, 1 year, went up 25%.
And that
See
6.4,
that at least again.
6.4 billion is gonna be over 10 probably this year.
Yeah, it's 17 billion, 17.5 billion. You went up 1.3 billion, but again, you being Valley County.
But I'm saying it's gonna go from 6.4 to over 10 this year, 10 billion in value, according to the assessor, somewhere around 10
That
billion.
hasn't been.
That'll be for next year's budget though.
Yeah, it'll show up, but Ada counties will go up You know, that's the
Absolutely.
thing you have. You have other counties, although Eld, I think you were, I can't remember who all the commissioners were back in, well, I guess you weren't in 07.
I didn't come on till 12.
Valley County ended up contributing way disproportional to our budget because your market values went up way higher than all the other 3 counties. So as long as all the boats are floating boats or whatever they say, as long as that's happening and it doesn't impact an individual county disproportionately. It did then, but it won't now because you can see here, I mean, Boise and Elmore are a bit lower, but they went up a lot too. And then Valley County's population, and these are estimates, went up more than any other county in our health district. So that's the story. That's House Bill 316. I think it'll be, you know, once this settles out, and I would say it'll settle out after this year, right? You got the transition, and next year, hopefully if the economy stays reasonably strong, we'd probably come back and ask for a 3% increase, and it'll be a true 3% increase versus mediation too. Okay. So personnel cost, what we're looking at doing is, as far as salary increases for our staff, and this is not competitive with what health and welfare has done. And I use them, we lose staff to DEQ, we lose support services staff to corrections and Department of Transportation, like finance staff and purchasing staff. We lose staff to other organizations, but health and welfare is the big one because that's where we get most of our contract money from. So what we're going to do is we're going to give what we call a 3% cost of living, so everybody will get that, and then it'll be stepped up from there based on performance evaluation. So somebody could get either a 4% or a maximum of 5%. I'm coming to the board Friday with a bonus plan. Hopefully they'll approve that to give a bonus to our staff because that's one-time money that we have. Based on what I shared with you earlier, we have the money to do it. It's just a matter of whether the board will agree to that, and I'm hopeful they will. Our operating cost has gone up, and mostly it's those projected ARPA expenditures that I described to you that would, if we get it or we get part of it or we get all of it, it'll greatly influence the operating expenditures. Page 5, you'll see the capital outlay cost. I don't know why, but always one of the commissioners somewhere gives me a hard time about buying new vehicles. And we buy them off the state contract. People tell me these prices are really good. Now, of course, if you can get to cars, that's another thing, just like everything else. So we're planning to buy 3 new Escapes because the home visitation program, which we're getting more Medicaid revenue because we're able to bill for it now, plus more money through ARPA funding. So all those folks are out on the road, just like with what Mike does and with what Natasha, his counterparts team does. They are on the road all day, every day. So when our vehicles get to 100,000, we start planning to surplus those while they still have some value, because we get paid for that. And then we buy new vehicles so they're safe and reliable and not high maintenance cost. And then we have some, we're doing some pretty cool stuff like a McCall with the Department of Labor, sharing space there. And they lease from us, so it's a little bit of revenue, and we think it's better for the community to have coordinated services. We have health and welfare that was there. I guess they're still leasing, but they're changing their whole organizational structure where they're not delivering behavioral health services anymore. They're going to do that all through a contract. So that's what's happening there. The T&B cost, that's moving, that's money that's basically passing through CDH, and we then contract out to the community to do our work. So like we were looking at contracting, Commissioner Mop, and you mentioned, well, can you hire contractors to do inspections, and that would end up showing up in our T&B budget. So it used to be pretty small and it was in operating, but now it's growing and growing, like the V-Corps funds and all that. A lot of that, we have some staff that are working on it, but a lot of it's going out to the community. Page 6, state appropriation total. I showed where it went to zero, which it did on the first page, but these were restricted funds. So they're giving us money for home visiting, and we're getting more Millennium Fund dollars, which is tobacco and vaping prevention and cessation. The governor, I don't know why, but he did cut our Millennium Fund dollars to zero. I went down to the Millennium Fund committee, because this is tobacco settlement money. It seems logical in my mind to use it for tobacco-related stuff. Went down and presented to them, and they gave us all the money that was in our proposed budget. The governor, a little cut. I'm sure he had good reason to do it. And then they gave us another, this isn't just us, this is for all the districts. They gave us another $1 million to work directly with schools, to buy stuff for schools, to build partnerships with schools. So I'm excited about it, because vaping is, like, for teenagers, off the charts.
That's because they wouldn't pass legislation to tax vaping like they do cigarettes. That needs to change.
We've got a resolution in front of IAB this year to do that.
Yep.
We're asking for that. We've been asking for it for a couple of years, but
Yeah.
I think the governor found out that Millennium Fund was a court settlement, and he couldn't use it for other areas.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff, just like the opioid stuff, it can only be used for opioid issues.
Right. That's right.
And I'm hoping that we can somehow kind of morph that into substance abuse and use it for a generalized whole thing, but it's not done yet.
No. Contract revenue, that's where you'll see in the ARPA funds appear. And that's not just Ada County, that's coming, like I said, from Department of Health and Welfare as well. Plus the opioid settlement. The check's been in the mail since April 1st. It's not arrived yet. It's $253,000 to start. I'm sure it will grow from there. And that'll be a big deal to help, you got V-Corps work, and then you got this money to help support it. The difference is we're supposed to get it over 18 years. So that's great. That's pretty darn sustainable. And there's apparently lawsuits in the queue with other companies too. So I think that'll grow. So that's it for as far as contract revenue. Fee revenue, we're expecting small increases. We don't charge more than what it cost us, whether it's on the medical side or on the environment side. Whatever it cost us, we use last year's cost, and we build in a little bit of inflation. Everything goes up, right? Gas went up just slightly compared to last year. Our salaries are going to go up too. So and the board approves those fees. So there's oversight there. Other revenue and interest, those are pretty low dollar amounts. Like I mentioned, we're getting lease revenue from Mountain Home and from McCall from other state agencies. And then we're increasing our, what they call tiers. So Medicaid pays you as a healthcare provider based on how many Medicaid people or people covered by Medicaid are assigned to you. So that's good. We're seeing increased revenue there. And then interestingly, right, the interest rates have been just dreadfully, well, I guess depends on if you're borrowing or want to make money off of it. They're dreadfully low if you want to make money off of it, and they're starting to turn, right? Interest rates are going up. So we may have underestimated our actual interest revenue that we'll get, but we don't know how this is going to shake out. There is no reserve funding in this budget, so we're not drawing from our reserve funding to balance this budget. Then pages 8, 9, and 10, and I call this the fine print, so it will fit on these pages. These are all the programs and all the services we deliver. So if you have any questions about those in particular, I'm happy to answer those. And that's now or whenever. You all know you can get in touch with me anytime. The Valley County data sheet that was in your packet, it's the, I don't know what to call it, slick paper document, shows the services we provided to the citizens of Valley County. And we have generally not struggled so much on the environmental health specialist side, although we are now, as we talked at the start of our conversation. But on the medical side, it's just we hire somebody, they do a great job, and then they leave. So right now, we came up with a new plan that I think is going to be, I hope you can speak to it, but Meg Fitzmaurice is coming back to work for us very part-time.
Oh, really?
I can't remember Anna's last name.
Kenny.
So Anna is a PA, right?
Yes.
And so we have a nurse practitioner and a PA, and they're going to work part-time for us. And I think this is the best model we've been able to come up with, because when you hire, you know your patient base, and we generally serve people who don't have insurance and have other stuff going on in their life that they might not want to go to their primary care provider for. And then they're gone. And then we have these big gaps in trying to send somebody to Boise. So both Anna and Meg have started working for us again, which I'm really excited about. And then COVID, this is FY21 data, and COVID really impacted, you don't do oral health. I'm talking early on in the pandemic, not today. We're back to full operation, but just trying to keep the machine running when people felt real uncomfortable with face-to-face interaction. So the numbers, I think, are a bit low. But if you turn to page 2, you can see there, the most dramatic changes were up in land. 65% increase in septic applications, 53% increase in permits issued, 42% increase in accessory use, 85% increase in subdivision applications. So these are big numbers. And that's where we find ourselves right now. I mean, the staff have been able to keep up with it. Mike has helped out a lot. As he said, coming up here in Boise County. And we don't see that slowing just yet, although it sounds like maybe there's a little bit of an indication from what you described, Commissioner Hasbrook, or at least a pause, a delay, maybe a better way to describe it. Then you can see the communicable diseases that we basically investigate them all, and it's an STD. We try to get people in to get treated and find out who their partners are and get them in to get tested and treated. Then the health policy and health promotion work, and public health preparedness summaries. And I'll just tell you, this is super high level summary. It doesn't go into all the detail of the work we do, but these are some of the key points that I think indicates the work effort and workload and what we're doing for your communities. So that is what I have for you, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Central District Health
Just so I'm clear,
101.
the requested amount from Valley County is going to be
One other thing you have to know about
$196,000. If your budget is approved by the board
Friday.
Friday.
Yep, and you'll be notified of that. We'll send out if the budget's approved, we send out letters to each of our counties and you'll get it. So it's $195,600 678.
All right, any more questions for these guys? It's a really great group. I love serving on the health board. It's kind of face to face with a lot of those people, and what I enjoy is down there watching people come in for services, and they're refugees. You can tell they're from other countries, and they're welcome there. It's a friendly place, and they do a lot of good for a lot of people.
Interesting few years. Thanks for all you do.
Yeah, well, thank you for the thank you. Not everybody's appreciative. Most people are.
Is there statewide, I keep looking at, is this a 3% problem? You know, and that's what it kind of comes down to.
Local 3%.
Yeah, in other words,
I think, yeah,
you're limited to what you can do, 3%, and
Welcome to
no
county
matter how
government.
bad.
Welcome to county government. That's right.
Our values go up like this, where 3% goes like this, and it almost seems like statewide that's an issue. I mean, I don't know.
Well, you guys deal with it with everything you do.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're just a small part of your budget, and trying to manage growth with that 3% cap, it's incredibly challenging.
And what did the state do this year? 5%? So I mean, for their
staff,
employees, yeah.
way more than that.
Some of them are 6 and 7.
What they did was they gave a 3% cost of living, and then $1.25 an hour, up to $1.25 an hour.
That's
So you
right.
take, I calculated, I think the low end is 7%.
7%.
Low end. And up from there, if the lower the wage, the greater the percent, because $1.25 on $15 an hour, I can't remember what it was. I think some of the staff will get like 12% increase.
So you're saying at the state level, they're usually doing a different program that we're bound to at the county level.
Well, we're bound to the 3% on our budget. How we spend that is up to us, but if the state starts out with a 7 or 8 or 9% increase in salaries, it just comes right down the food chain to the rest of us.
Yeah.
They're not held to the 3% cap.
Yeah.
Right. It seemed like that's more, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
I kind of.
Well, thank you guys all for coming in. Good to see you. Don't burn yourself up this summer,
Yeah, just
Nice to meet
do
you
the
in
best we
person.
can.
I've talked to you. I've never met you in person, so nice to meet
If
you.
you ever need a place to stay, you're stuck up here, just let me know. I got lots of bedrooms.
Mr. Chairman, Amber Kostoff with Paws Regional Animal Shelter
Okay.
is on Teams right now.
So we're gonna move on. Thank you guys. Have a safe trip back. Amber, can you hear us?
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, can you hear me? I just
Yep,
turned my
we can hear
camera
you.
on also.
You got about
Great.
13, 14 minutes. Can we do it?
I can try.
Hey, that'll work.
Okay, and you'll have to bear with me. I am not there in person with you because I tested positive for COVID last week. So I'm on the mend, but still symptomatic. And so if I'm coughing or sound congested, that is why. So hopefully it'll be okay. So I sent out our 2021 activity report and request for funding for the coming fiscal year. I gave that to Doug, so hopefully he distributed that to you. I also sent out financials from last year as well. And I guess, first things first, we are requesting that the funding contribution from Valley County be the same for the coming fiscal year at $15,000. And I wanted to just go through a little bit of the report that I sent and some of the services that McPaws has provided over the last year. We estimate that of the 4,000 households that are in Valley County alone, nearly 60% of those all have a pet. So of course that would be around 4,000 animals. With the growth that, I think we are all bracing for, as you guys were just discussing, we can expect that this number is going to grow quite a bit. With new people coming into the community, you can rest assured that they're going to be bringing their pets with them.
Basic animal services, providing space to house stray animals, get them returned to their owners, having space and ability to implement appropriate bite protocols and rabies quarantine periods according to Idaho state law, completing humane euthanasia for dangerous animals, and providing responsible live outcomes for all adoptable animals. These are basic animal services, and I want to stress that these are not necessarily a luxury. These are vital public services that have to be provided in order to maintain a safe and healthy community. And that's exactly what McPaws is doing. Community animal services are handled differently across the country. Quite often, it's common that the governing municipality would be 100% responsible for animal services. That either the governing municipality or the law enforcement agency within that municipality. It's also very common that a private nonprofit organization will hold a contract with the local governments to provide those services, which is similar to the arrangement that we have with Valley County. We also do hold a formal contract with the city of McCall as well. So getting into numbers, last year we provided shelter services for 634 animals. 28% were stray, 40% were owner guardian surrenders, 22% were transferred in from partners, adoption partners, 5% were animals adopted to us and then returned, and 5% were animals brought into us by local law enforcement. In total, 30% of our intakes came from Valley County, which is a higher proportion than we have with any of the other local jurisdictions we serve. Also, you guys know we offer additional services outside of traditional shelter services. For example, we spayed or neutered 132 community animals last year that never really were admitted to the shelter. We provided $5,000 in veterinary services for low-income families at the McPaws Vet Hospital last year. And right now we're on track to greatly surpass both of those numbers for 2022. Last year we finished with a 97% live release rate, which means that 97% of the animals that came through our doors walked back out of them. 127 stray dogs and cats were returned to their owners, which makes up a 90% return to owner rate for dogs and a 17% rate for cats, which is much higher than the national average. 3 animals died due to illness, 11 animals were euthanized, and 20 animals were transferred back out to partners. Overall, 463 animals were adopted. 25% of those went to families within the county, 23% went to families in the city of McCall, 12% to Adams County. And then once again, this is a trend that we've been seeing for several years now. The vast majority of the adoptions we did were to families living outside of the service area. So outside of essentially Valley County or Adams County. We adopt a lot of animals out to the Boise area, and that made up 40% of our adoptions. I want to take a quick moment to address the McPaws transfer program. As you just heard me say, 22% of our intakes came in transfers last year. And I can understand how there could be some questions associated with this. So first, what I'll say is that local animals and communities always receive priority in our transfer program, never impedes our ability to serve our local communities. As I mentioned, 30% of the animals we received last year came from Valley County, and this proportion is on par with recent years for quite a while, actually, with what we've been getting in from Valley County. So I think it shows that we've really kept our service level to the county quite consistent over time, despite the transfer program. Second, we transfer animals in, frankly, because it falls within our mission and we have the ability and the resources to do so. The mission of McPaws is not necessarily tied to the county line or city limits. As I mentioned, 40% of all the adoptions we did were to families that live outside of our area. So when we have the space and the resources and the adopters and the staff to bring in more animals and provide support to partner organizations that are trying to do the same thing that we are in their local communities and who quite often have much less resources available to them, we'll take that opportunity to do it. In particular, last year, we worked really closely with an organization in Idaho County based out of Grangeville. That's where, last year, that 22%, that's 120 animals that we transferred in, and 100 of those animals came from that organization in Grangeville. So who they just have zero resources available to them. There's no animal shelter, there's no animal control. So we were really proud and happy to be able to support them in what they're doing. You know, and then lastly, I think maybe what this, the biggest concern that maybe this group would have is that the idea that we are using funds we receive from Valley County to care for animals that come from outside of the county. And I'll just let me offer a little perspective on that. So McPaws has been receiving funds from Valley County since 2005. It's been in varying amounts, but in 2014 is when it was reduced to the $15,000 a year level. This is the lowest level that we've received from Valley County since we started getting funding. And overall, this represents about 4% of our total operating expenses at the shelter. So this does not include, obviously doesn't include thrift store or vet hospital operating expenses. This doesn't include administrative expenses like my salary, our fundraising salary, expenses and salaries are not included there. So just the expenses incurred at the animal shelter to operate the $15,000 is about 4% of our operating expenses. So like I said, that 30%, 30% of the animals that we get in come from Valley County. So I think it's pretty safe to say that the $15K that we receive falls well within the amount of expenses we incur just to care for those animals that we get from the county. And, frankly, even if we greatly reduced the services that we were providing and really went to more of a basic shelter model, it would still cost more than $15,000 to provide those services. So I wanted to kind of hopefully that put some of the concerns at rest there. Are there any questions about any of that so far?
No, none for me, Amber. I think it looks great.
Okay. And then one last thing I just wanted to chat about, if you're open to it, is, again, I think like all of us, we're again preparing and bracing for the growth that we're expecting to see in our community and that have already gotten in the community. And I wondered if it might be time to really try to discuss and work together on some ways that we might be able to adjust and focus on new ways that we can partner so that we can address and meet the needs that are going to be coming up in the future. In particular, I'd like to maybe discuss the idea of moving to a more formal contract for services with the county, similar to what we have with the city of McCall. If I had to say the biggest difference right now between the arrangement we have with the city versus the county, the city police department has access to our building. They have 24-hour access to the facility. They have an alarm code. They have a key. They can, when they're responding to stray animal calls, they can bring animals to the shelter. If they impound a vehicle or a person that has an animal associated, they can bring that animal to us outside of business hours. And right now, the county doesn't have that option. We don't have that in our agreement. We don't have, I think that in order for us to get there, which I think would be very beneficial for both of us, both parties, I think we would need to have a more formal contract that really does outline what are the boundaries, what are the expectations that the county has for the services that PAWS provides, and that'll, and vice versa. And then that should really be able to help us provide hopefully overall better services to the county. As to my knowledge right now, I don't think that there is an established protocol that the county deputies have when they're working and responding to an animal-related call, at least a companion animal-related call. Hasn't been for a little while, but I've gotten many, calls, late-night calls from Valley County Dispatch or a deputy who's kind of, found themselves in a situation where they have a individual or they've found an animal and they don't really have an option of what to do with that animal because the shelter is closed. So in the past, I think they would call the police department and have an officer meet them at the shelter and they'd let them in. but that hasn't been an option for them for a couple of years. So I'm wondering, is this something that the county would be interested in? Is this, I know it would probably take a little bit more work, but I think with the city, it's really a pretty seamless renewal process every year, and it's really worked out very well for us. So I'm interested in your feedback there.
Amber, would it be possible to send us kind of a copy of what contract you have with McCall City, and we can look at that and
Yes.
see? Because that's what I was
You bet.
thinking. Is that,
Yes,
do you know,
absolutely.
is it based on a per animal deal, or how does that
It
work?
is not. It's not based on per animal. It is a set amount. We receive $40,000 each year from the city of McCall. And it's a set amount, and there's essentially a bullet point list of criteria of services that we will provide, that we agree to provide to the city. And that includes providing 24-hour access to the facility, to the police officers. It includes that we will, if the city finds themselves in a legal situation where there's an animal cruelty case or something like that, where animals need to be held and part of a court proceeding, which can often be quite lengthy, we will hold those animals for them with some parameters there. And those are I think the two main components to it. But it's not associated with, they pay per animal or anything like that. It's more of the base amount.
So you get McCall Police, and they brought in 6, and that's you said a $40,000 contract. In our case, it looks like we brought in 1 last year, so I'd be interested to know what you're thinking about as far as the contract cost.
So where are you looking at the report that the table at the bottom?
Yeah, the one you sent us, McCall Police Department, and then it has
Yeah.
Valley County Sheriff is on there.
Yeah. So that the table is a little bit, unfortunately, and I can send additional information, because that only those two, the Valley County Sheriffs and the McCall Police Department, those are only the amount of animals that were brought in that were actually impounded. The animals that were brought in by the city of McCall Police Department, for example, as stray, they fall under the stray category. That I'd have to run a different report so you could see that. But like I mentioned, about 5% of total animal intakes came from law enforcement, and the overwhelming majority of those are just, the police officers, they found a stray animal, or somebody else found a stray animal, and they dropped them off at the shelter. And they're usually almost always during business hours anyway. But the argument I would make there is that the reason that the law enforcement really doesn't have, well, first of all, Valley County's not bringing us a lot, because I don't think that the deputies have a mechanism to actually get the animals to us. First of all, there's no process there. But second of all, the community is pretty well trained, for lack of a better word at this point, that they know that McPaws has been a resource in the community for so long that they, it's kind of like they're able to take out the middleman. I don't think that we're a big enough community that we need a formal animal control department or anything like that. I think that we can probably work together to make sure that we can just address the need there. I would say, as far as a contract amount, I'm open to discussion on that. I don't think that, I'm not looking for a huge increase in funding. I'm not going to come in here and start asking for, $60,000 or anything like that. We do receive more animals from Valley County than we do get from the city of McCall. But so I'm open to discussion. I don't know what an option there would be. I know that you guys have a lot of, priorities on your plate, and your budget is limited just like everybody's. So I don't know if that's a good answer to your question.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that contract, and maybe, get it to Doug or email it to us, whatever. One of the things that I look at all the time is a cost per dog or cat. And, if I figured it out right today, it was, and I think this was just dogs, so I don't have the cat. The cats aren't in here, are they?
Yeah, they are.
This is both dogs and cats?
Yes.
So it ended up 1.95 million divided by 766 gives me $2,500 an animal. And quite a few years back, that was about $600 an animal. So those are the things that I look at. And I know it costs money to do what you guys do, and I think you guys do a great service, but do we need a Cadillac or do we need an old Chevy? That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Sure. And I think that to look at it that way is a little bit misleading though, honestly. If you're looking at our total operating budget, you know, I don't think it's fair to include the operating expenses and income that we produce, like through our thrift store and our veterinary hospital. Like that's separate. That's something that we as a private nonprofit organization, those are initiatives that we have put in place for ourselves in order to offer better services to our community, serve our mission, and maintain fiscal sustainability. So really what you need to look at is just the shelter operations, because that's really what goes into actually running the brick and mortar shelter. And in our profit and loss statement, we book expenses and income by class. So you can see at the top, like you can see the shelter column. And secondarily, you know, just you can't, we never know our population, animal populations, and the need in the community does ebb and flow depending on the season, just like everything. You know, but to put this kind of perspective on it, it costs us about $11,000 every year just to pay for the utilities at the shelter. So even if we don't have any animals there, we can't just shut everything down, which we really never don't have any animals there. You know, we don't have staff that just is on call, and so we only pay them when we need them. You know, it's our responsibility to be ready to offer the services and care for the animals that we take in a humane and competent way at all times. You know, we're a service organization. We don't build things, we don't sell things, we don't make things, we provide a service, and that depends on having a staff that is competent and compassionate to provide the services for people in the community. So that all, you know, that has to happen. We have to have those things no matter what. It doesn't matter how many animals that we take in each year.
Amber, on your P&L, what's development?
Development is fundraising.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions for Amber? Okay, so send us that contract from McCall City and we'll take a look at it and have our discussion and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
Alrighty?
I do think it probably at some point would be prudent to involve the sheriff's department. I don't know what the process would be there, if there's any recommendations there.
Okay. We will do that. If there's no more questions, then thank you very much. And we'll let you know on what we end up budgeting for, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Hopefully you feel better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so Doug, I guess we're gonna push some of this stuff in the afternoon and we didn't finish this morning.
That is a decision that I'd
Or
like
do you wanna work
to
through
make, the
lunch?
Commissioners make.
I'm happy to work through lunch.
Ed, are you happy to work through lunch?
Yeah, I'll keep doing whatever we need to do.
Okay, then we'll move on down to
I
our,
believe, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for interrupting you. I believe that we can probably accomplish all of this within 15 minutes, so 15, 20 minutes. And then the commissioners can have a short lunch after that.
okay?
My apologies.
So then we're gonna, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive for session per Idaho Code 742061D for indigent and charity.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Been moved and seconded by roll call, please.
Bob and I.
Alan?
Hasbrook, aye, and Doug will be in probably about 12:10. Is Candace bringing this up?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second.
Okay.